Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. Again, apologize for the delay. The panel A meeting ran late, and to finish that business and make sure we would have all the board members available for this meeting, we had to delay the start time. Pursuant to the provisions of Governor Gavin Newsom's Executive Order N2920, dated March 17th, 2020, this meeting is being conducted via WebEx. Public comments will be heard for each agenda item for individuals wishing to do so. In order to be ready for public comment, we ask that you please ensure that your comments can be heard clearly by being connected to the audio of this meeting through the proper method. If you are having difficulty hearing the audio of this meeting, it could be because your device or you're connecting with has bandwidth limitations. If you do have difficulty hearing the audio of this meeting using your device's audio, please click the ellipsis button at the bottom of the WebEx application or the Communicate menu item at the top of the WebEx application, and then select the audio connection option. The audio connection option, if you are connected to the computer audio, will tell you so, and you will see an option to call in. There's a view button next to that call in option, and you'll be provided with a telephone number, access code, and attendee ID that can be used to connect to the meeting via a phone. Using the information provided, it will automatically disconnect your device's audio and connect your phone to the name you have joined the meeting with. By using this method, if you are having audio problems with your device's audio, you will still be able to participate and hear the audio of the board meeting through the phone. Please see the instructions on how to connect link, which is available from the last page of the meeting agenda, for step-by-step instructions with screenshots. Thank you. President Pines, you may now start the meeting.
Good afternoon. I want to ask everyone to please turn their cell phones to silent. Since this meeting is being conducted via WebEx, I will ask all board members and speakers to announce themselves by name before speaking for clarity of the official record. All board members are able to unmute themselves to speak during the meeting. Please place yourself back on mute when not speaking to reduce the background noise for all participants. Following such online meeting etiquette will ensure the best audio quality for everyone. During each call for comments from board members and speakers, we will ensure that all comments that can be accommodated are heard before proceeding with the agenda. This is an official business meeting of the Medical Board of California, and as such, disruptions of the board's business will not be tolerated. We have a designated time on the agenda for public comment and will ask for public comment on each agenda item. I ask that you be respectful of the need to conduct the board's business. Should anyone disrupt the meeting, I will ask that person to conduct him or herself in such a manner that permits the board to transact its business. The board welcomes public comments on any item on the agenda, and it is the board's intent to ask for public comments prior to the board taking action on any agenda item. During each agenda item, the host moderating this WebEx event will activate the Q&A feature of WebEx and will ask anyone wishing to make a public comment to indicate so by replying yes in that feature. The host will then call on individuals who indicate they wish to make public comments by the name that they joined the WebEx event as. When called upon, the host will unmute the microphone of the individual, and he or she will have 3 minutes to make his or her public comment. The host will audibly announce when the 15 seconds remain to conclude the public comment. After the 3 minutes have lapsed, the individual will be placed back on mute. Only one public comment per agenda item will be allowed per attendee. Please see pages 7 and 8 of the WebEx instructions on how to connect from the link on the last page of the agenda and for screenshots and additional detailed instructions. During agenda item 2, public comments on items not on the agenda, the board has limited the total public comment period for individuals to 40 minutes. Therefore, after 40 minutes, no further comments will be accepted. During public comment on any other agenda item, 20 minutes will be allowed for the comment period. After 20 minutes, no further comments will be accepted. Each person will be limited to 3 minutes per agenda item. The board's IT staff will assist me with receiving the public comments via WebEx during this meeting. I want to remind all speakers to stay on topic and keep your comments to the allotted time or less. Today's meeting will run according to the Open Meetings Act as required by law. We plan to end today's meeting at 6 p.m. I would like to call the meeting to order and ask board members to unmute their computers. Ms. Cruz Jones, please call the roll.
Dr. Gonadev. Dr. Hawkins.
Yes.
Dr. Kraus.
Please unmute your, board members, please unmute your computer.
Dr. Kraus.
Dr. Kraus, you're muted.
Ms. Lawson.
Yes, here.
Ms. Lubiano.
Present.
Dr. Lewis.
Present.
Dr. Mahmood. Dr. Thorpe.
Here.
Mr. Warmoth.
Here.
Mr. Watkins.
Present.
Dr. Yip.
Present.
And Ms. Pines.
Here, we have a quorum. Board members, please mute your computers. I would like to remind the members again that we will be taking a roll call vote on all action items. Now moving to agenda item 2, public comments on items not on the agenda. Before I ask for public comments, I would ask individuals making comments not to discuss pending complaints, pending licensing applications, or pending disciplinary actions that may come before the board for a decision. Such decisions are considered ex parte communication, as they could provide information to members that is outside the record in violation of the Administrative Procedure Act. Therefore, such discussions can create a conflict and lead to a board decision being challenged in Superior Court. The board can receive comments regarding the board's processes in general, but it cannot receive comments on specific case circumstances where the decision is still pending. In addition, the board would like the public to address the board as a whole and not individual members. Please be aware that the public comment during this agenda item should provide information to the board members and is not a discussion between the board members and the public. The only action board members can take is to listen to comments and decide whether they want a future agenda item on the topic. No other action can be taken on the item at this meeting. Though this may seem at times like the board members are not being responsive, following these guidelines is critical to ensure the rules of the Open Meeting Act are followed to avoid compromising the speaker's goals or the board's mission. If you want to comment on an agenda item, please wait until we get to that agenda item. Comments at this time are only for items that are not on the agenda. Again, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. I will now ask the host to call for public comments.
Thank you, President Pines. The Q&A functionality of WebEx events is being used to poll attendees who would like to make a public comment. I have activated the Q&A window in WebEx so attendees can indicate they would like to make that public comment. If you would like to make a comment, a verbal public comment, please type in the Q&A window, "I would like to make a public comment." Please do not enter your actual comment in the Q&A window. I will call on attendees in the order their typed requests are received. I will call on the speakers using the name the attendee used to join the meeting and unmute their line. After the line is open and the speaker confirms they have audio capabilities by replying, they will have 3 minutes for public comment. When the speaker has 15 seconds remaining, I will announce that the speaker has 15 seconds to conclude. At the conclusion of the 3 minutes, the speaker will be placed back on mute, and I'll repeat the process for the next individual who requested to make a public comment. Each requesting attendee will be limited to 1 public comment per agenda item. Once all requesting attendees have been called, or the time allowed for the public comment session has ended, I will close the Q&A window until the next agenda item's public comment session. Please note that the public comment session is not a back and forth discussion between the speaker and the board. The public comment session is an opportunity to share information with the board. If you haven't done so yet, please go ahead and type in your response, and let me get to the first individual here. Susan Lauren, let me unmute your mic.
Hello?
Hi, Susan Lauren, thank you. You have 3 minutes to make your public comment. I will provide an audible announcement when you have 15 seconds remaining and ask you to conclude. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. On April 29th, the Beverly Hills City Council voted to resume elective plastic surgery. John Marish, the only voice of reason, was outvoted. Leaders in California consistently make poor choices regarding public health, yet they put forth a different public persona. The medical legal system in California is amoral and corrupt. Those involved willfully protect negligent doctors, turn a blind eye to medical malpractice, scams, negligence, fraud, and surgical battery. Thus, healthcare is not learning from bad practice. Saul Berger surgically assaulted me during breast reduction in his private center, causing disability, disfigurement, and pain. Yet the board failed to protect the public or bring justice. The 4% discipline rate of the board is pitiful. Egregious cases such as mine are willingly mishandled, and a lot of the women I know harmed by plastic surgeons don't file complaints because they know the board protects doctors, not citizens. The LA coroner lists 17 deaths from liposuction over the past 10 years. These are increasing in frequency. All deaths were to women, average age under 48. This is gender-related genocide to healthy women. However, morbidity is the barometer for liposuction harm. Lipo, which is part of many medically recommended and cosmetic surgeries, causes an increase in disease-producing visceral fat, metabolic syndrome, fat embolus in 100% of the rats, increase in insulin resistance correlated to the volume of aspirated fat. Dr. Gutowski, a board-certified plastic surgeon and clinical associate professor at University of Illinois in Chicago, explains, some states, like California, have passed liposuction legislation based on a guideline, but there's no data behind it, no science. Surgeons and their boards mislead the public with liposuction propaganda. They coerce through false imagery, strong advertising, and deceptive short-term results. People are harmed by liposuction the world over. They watch American plastic surgery TV shows that deceive them. California is responsible. They refuse to regulate dangerous, unscrupulous surgeons and, in fact, support them. Search engines lead people to the Real Self website, an advertising mecca for plastic surgeons who spout propaganda for profit. Cover-ups are widespread and sadistic. Medical records are often wrong, even with audit trails, because doctors make up whatever suits them in real time, or they don't listen to people from the outset. The medical record as evidence is outdated and hazardous. Batterers do not document their bad acts, but they do fabricate notes,
15 seconds
alter
remain.
records.
Please conclude.
How many?
15 seconds.
And blame-
Please conclude.
Okay. So this leads to more iatrogenic harm. These are crimes of humanity. They're dehumanizing, and you're sacrificing ethics and kindness to protect licenses and income. I have legislative proposals that require truth in advertising for liposuction, changes to California Liposuction Code 1356.6, the creation of patient-approved records, and recognition of surgical assault as a crime. Police need to be involved since.
Thank you. Your 3 minutes has concluded. Next, I have Hannah Ree. Give me a moment to unmute your mic. All right, there's a long list here. Okay, Hannah Ree, you're unmuted. Can you confirm you can speak?
Hello, test.
Yes. Okay, we hear you loud and clear. Please go ahead with your public comment.
Yes, I thank you very much. Well, medical board members, the world has changed so much since we last met. It's quite incredible. It's good to be here and to have all of you present here as well. What a different world we live in some aspects. in this COVID-19 era, it is more imperative than ever for California to lead the charge in healthcare diversity and religious tolerance. When we first heard of COVID-19's deadly impact in other places in the world, the first thing we considered was how is it going to affect our patient population? How will it affect those who are homeless, those who are African American, those who don't have health insurance? Then when anecdotal reports were coming in from around the country, from Florida, from Michigan, from New York, from California, that in fact, African American patients had a significantly higher morbidity and mortality than other patient populations, than other racial patient populations. Then when we heard about the possible benefits of hydroxychloroquine, we realized that there could be, in fact, a autoimmune component to it, in which case we achieved success by writing to Governor Newsom and made our statements known. So for that, I thank the supporters of Black Patients Matter. So I ask each and every one of you, please consider, especially in these times, having an African American Black Patients Matter advocate come and present to you. There's information that could be learned. It's relevant information. If in fact you are not feeling concerned or alarmed about, I'm sorry?
Yeah, 15 seconds, please conclude.
Yes, if you are not feeling concerned, please consider stepping down from medical board. If you're feeling annoyed, angry, upset, offended at the presence of Black Patients Matters at these meetings, please consider stepping down. If in fact you feel that it's not necessary to work or to volunteer in.
Thank you for the comment. We have to move on to the next speaker. I see a comment from Perry Lambert, but it looks like it's on a bill to be discussed in agenda item 9. So we will skip over that for now. If you have a comment for something not on the agenda, please go ahead and submit another request to comment. The next requester on the list is Eric Andrist. Eric Andrist, I've unmuted your microphone. Are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Please go ahead with your public comment.
Okay, thanks. This is probably the most reasonably priced medical board meeting I've been to, with not having to buy airline tickets and pay for a hotel and expensive parking. I really like this. But how come no one is using video, and why can't we see the list of other public attendees? I've mentioned a number of times about this board putting out PDF disciplinary documents in an image-only or non-OCR format. These documents are basically a photograph of the text so that you can't copy and paste from them unless they're converted. Carrie said months ago that she would look into why this happens, but I've heard no follow-up. Normally, the documents you put out for these meetings are not put out in that same fashion. But then I got an email from Alexandria Shimbra last week with an attached document, and it too was in the image-only format. But in that document, she included a web link for me to click, but I couldn't click it because of the format she submitted it in. So my only recourse was to manually type the long web link into the browser and hope I got all the letters and numbers right. The company that created PDF documents, Adobe, has a frequently asked question on their Acrobat for Legal Professionals website in regard to these image-only documents. Their legal expert writes, quote, "Every once in a while I receive an email that has me scratching my head a bit, such as why someone asks how to create an image-only PDF document. He goes on to say, why would someone want to take a perfectly good, fully searchable document and turn it into an image-only PDF, which is just a picture of the page in a PDF wrapper? The only answer is that, of course, of vigorously defending a client, some firms desire to make using documents as difficult as possible for the other side. Of the various PDF flavors, an image-only PDF is 3 to 5 times larger in file size, looks worse on screen, prints slower, and is not searchable. So one has to wonder why this board, a state agency, would put out documents that makes it difficult for consumers to use and house them, except, as the legal expert from Adobe says, to make it more difficult for the other side. I'm asking this board to inquire into this and get this changed. The default state of scanning a document into a PDF should not be the way you're outputting them. I'd also like to know how many of you who say you make notes while we're talking so you can follow up actually followed up on my comment about how tiny the font is on Breeze. Did anyone follow up on that? Because the font is still tiny. Makes us not believe you when you say you care and that you follow up on things we say. I've never in all my meetings heard one of you say, I'd like to follow up on something Eric said at the last meeting. Did any of you care to follow up on why my complaint was closed when my surgeon proved in my complaint that the other doctor did my surgery wrong? Or is that you punish me for publicly holding this board accountable? If that surgeon harms again,
15 seconds to conclude.
Thank you. You know it's going to be on your head. Marianne Hollingsworth warned you about the doctor that had a hand in her dad's death and went on to harm others. We're keeping very close track of these doctors, and we're going to hold you accountable when they harm again because you're not doing your job. Thanks.
Thank you for your public comment. The next speaker I have is Faith Gibson. Let me unmute your microphone. Faith Gibson, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead with your public comment.
All right, thank you. My name is Faith Gibson. I'm a California licensed member of the Midwifery Advisory Council from 2007 to 2013. I'm requesting support by the medical board for an amendment to the Licensed Midwifery Practice Act to expand the postpartum scope of practice of licensed midwives from 6 weeks to 12 months. This is consistent with definitions used by the CDC and the World Health Organization for assessing maternal health and tracking maternal morbidity and mortality. We generally think of maternal deaths as primarily a childbirth issue, but actually only 17% of these deaths occur during labor, birth, or the immediate recovery phase. However, a whopping 52% occur during the 12 months after a new mother gives birth, and this number does not include suicide, which is 3 times greater than the deaths from medical complications. For the last century, maternity care in the U.S. has focused intensely on pregnancy and childbirth. As a result, healthy new mothers and their neonates are discharged from the hospital after 48 hours with no scheduled follow-up for the new mother until the traditional 6 weeks checkup. ACOG recently recommended that new mothers be first seen in the office at 3 weeks, but currently there is no formal mechanism for home visits during the first week after hospital discharge and no regular follow-up after the 6-week visit. The most common medical reasons for postpartum deaths include hypertension, pulmonary embolism, infection, and an increasing rate of undiagnosed cardiopathy. Even more disturbing is the suicide rate from postpartum depression during the first year, which, as I mentioned, is 3 times higher than medical complications. Currently, licensed midwives make 2 house calls during the first few days after the birth and schedule an office visit to see the new mother and baby at 2 and 6 weeks. I'm proposing to extend the formal scope of practice for licensed midwives to include the first 12 months postpartum, and to add an educational module for recognizing the signs and symptoms of pulmonary embolism, cardiopathy, and postpartum depression to the educational criteria for LMs. Many midwives, myself included, already provide an extended form of postpartum support, what we call second 9-month care. At the 6 weeks visit, I offer to see the new mother at 3, 6, and 9 months. This could easily be expanded to a 1-year visit. In addition, additional benefit of extending midwifery care to the 1-year postpartum is that healthcare organizations like Kaiser, community clinics, and obstetrical groups could formally employ LMs to provide extended postpartum care as home visits for new mothers just released from the hospital and 30-minute office visits at 3, 6, 9, and 12 months. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope you will favorably consider my proposal.
Thank you for your public comment. The next speaker I have is Marianne Hollingsworth. Let me unmute your mic. Marianne Hollingsworth, are you there?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Please go ahead with your public
Okay.
comment.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. My name is Marion Hollingsworth, and I would like to ask for an update at your next meeting regarding the death certificate project. There has been no update on the program to hold these doctors accountable for overdose deaths for almost a year now. There's also been no additional doctors added to the list since last fall. I would like to know if pressure from the CMA caused the medical board to back off this program. I would also like the board to report on the status of maternal death and infant death cases in childbirth and how they are being handled. Some of the cases you have pending now go back to 2013. That's 7 years. So for the past 7 years, a number of potentially dangerous doctors have been practicing with no additional training or limitations. Please have updates on these two important issues at the next meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your public comment. That is the last speaker that has indicated they would like to make a public comment at this time. I'm going to go ahead and disable the Q&A window until the next agenda items public comment section. Ms. Pines, you can take over again.
Thank you so much. Moving to agenda item 3, approval of meeting minutes from the January 30th, 2020 quarterly board meeting. Members, please unmute your computers. Are there any additional corrections or additions to the January board meeting minutes from members?
No, I move to approve the minutes from the January 31, 2020 quarterly board meeting.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Dr. Hawkins.
I now ask the host to call for public comments.
Okay, I will go ahead and open the public or the Q&A window again. Anyone wishing to make a public comment, please indicate in the Q&A window by typing "I would like to make a public comment," and I will call on you in the order that you reply in.
These are for public comments on the meeting minutes.
Or the meeting minutes. First up, I have Hannah Ree. Hannah Ree, are you there?
Yes, thank you.
Please go ahead with your public comment.
Yes, I was just reviewing the summary statement about my public comments and in the minutes, and I guess it left out the fact that I've been repeatedly, requesting to be able to give a presentation on Black health, and thus far have not been allowed to. So I just would like to maybe have the minutes reflect my repeated request. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. Put you back on mute, I'm sorry. Anyone else would like to make a public comment? If the Q&A window will appear automatically, you will have to click the arrow in the header bar to open it up to type a message in there. Any other public comments? Okay, thank you. I'll go ahead and deactivate the window for this time. Ms. Pines, you can proceed with the next agenda item.
Great. Ms. Cruz Jones, please perform the roll call to approve the January 2020 board meeting minutes.
Dr. Gonadev. Dr. Hawkins.
Yes.
Dr. Kraus. Ms. Lawson.
Yes.
Ms. Lubiano.
Yes.
Dr. Lewis.
Aye.
Dr. Mahmood.
Yes.
Dr. Thorpe.
Yes.
Mr. Warmoth.
Yes.
Mr. Watkins.
Yes.
Dr. Yip.
Abstain, thank you.
And Ms. Pines.
Yes. Meeting minutes are approved. Members, please mute your computers. I am now moving to agenda item 4, President's Report. In this time of uncertainty and challenge in response to the coronavirus, the first order of business for all of us is to take care of our health, our families, and our communities. For those doctor members on the front lines, we are truly inspired by your commitment and leadership. As president of the Medical Board of California, I want to reconfirm our collective commitment to our mission during this crisis. DCA and the board are working together daily to serve the public swiftly but safely. As a board, we adjusted to the seriousness of the situation so we could continue our important work and connect as a board in a new way, virtually, as we are doing today. COVID-19 has truly been a unique and unprecedented experience, allowing the board to evaluate workflows and processes to move securely online and paper-free. The board's IT team worked on overdrive to set up telework options with limited resources. I look forward to working with the staff and the board members this year on fully reimagining our services to licensees and the public. Another opportunity for improvement upon us this year is sunset review. The sunset review process provides an opportunity for DCA, the legislator, the board, and stakeholders to discuss the board's performance and make recommendations for change. The board's last sunset review was 2017, extending the board's sunset date in law until January 1st, 2022. Later this month, we anticipate to have more information on the process and timeline in light of COVID-19. Leading us through these opportunities will be our new executive director, William Pacifica. A native of California, Mr. Pacifica comes to the board from the Medical Council of Ireland, where he has served as Chief Executive Officer for the past 4 years. He himself is navigating COVID-19 in Ireland and will bring a unique international perspective. He will officially join us on June 15th. The board is recruiting 2 full-time positions on the executive team. On April 15, 2020, Governor Newsom appointed Christine Lally as Chief Deputy Director at DCA. Consequently, the board's deputy director position has been advertised. As the second in command, the deputy director is responsible for the board's daily operations, including the oversight of licensing and enforcement programs and compliance with statutes. The application deadline for a deputy director position is May 8, 2020. On March 5, 2020, Governor Newsom appointed Jennifer Simoes as Deputy Director of Legislation at DCA. Ms. Simoes serves as the Chief of Legislation and Public Affairs at the board since 2010. Her dedicated and thoughtful advocacy is greatly missed. The application for this position, the deadline, is May 14, 2020. In closing, I want to acknowledge the hard work and dedicated staff for the medical board. I have received several communications sharing gratitude for staff's ability to maintain the same level of service and professionalism during these uncertain times. I want to thank board staff for all the extra efforts made and creative workflows developed to ensure the mission of the medical board is alive and well before, during, and after COVID-19. Keep healthy and hopeful. Are there any questions or comments from members on the President's report? Please unmute your computer if you have a question or comment. I will now ask the host to call for public comments on the President's report.
Thank you, Ms. Pines. I've opened up the Q&A window again. If anyone would like to make a public comment, please just indicate so in the box and I can call on you in the order. First commenter, Hannah Ree. Unmute your mic. Hannah Ree, are you there?
Yes, thank you. I was thinking that maybe another notable accomplishment for President Pines would be that she had the roundtable sessions for advocates to sit at the table along with members of the DCA and the AG's office. That was pretty noteworthy. But maybe in the future it would also be noteworthy to have a patient advocate speak at the meetings, especially one who represents Black health patient, Black patients. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. Next public comment, Eric Andrus. Give me a minute to open your line. Eric Andrus, are you there?
I'm here.
Please proceed with your public comment.
Oh, Denise, who writes this stuff for you to say? As far as the last sunset review, no one talked to us about the last sunset review. Marion Hollingsworth and I spent weeks and weeks writing a 200+ page report, and not one person from the medical board commented on it or even thanked us for it. So don't say you listen to the stakeholders when it comes to the sunset review, because the board doesn't give a flying leap what the stakeholders have to say about it. You all ignored us 100% on the last sunset review. Stop writing this stuff that you spew out to us with all this positive attitude. There's bad things that are going on at the medical board, and talking about it in just a good light all the time isn't the way to solve the problems. Tell the truth. Stop sugarcoating everything. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. Does anyone else have a public comment before I go ahead and close down the window? Okay, I'll go ahead and close the window for this agenda item. Ms. Pines, you can continue.
Moving to agenda item 5, board member communications with interested parties. Do any of the members have anything to report? Please unmute your computer if you wish to speak. I will ask for the host to call for public comments.
Okay, the Q&A panel is open again. If you have, or if you'd like to make a public comment, please indicate so in the Q&A window. Eric Andrus, are you there?
I'm here.
Please go ahead with your public comment.
I want to thank everybody for the interested parties meeting in January. It was certainly much better than the, still wasn't perfect, but it was better. Thanks, Denise. I do want to address something that came up at the interested parties meeting in January. A victim spoke very passionately and readily, blamed Micra for a lot of the secondary harm that was caused to her after a doctor harmed her. Carrie basically shot her down, saying that the quote, "the board does not get involved with Micra," unquote, which, while technically true, totally misses the victim's point and was just a quick way for Carrie, something the board frequently does to victims. I know a lot about Micra, right? Richard Thorpe even interviewed Senator Barry Keene, the author of the original Micra bill. As part of the backroom deal to get Micra passed, the legislation added 7 members to the Board of Examiners, which eventually became the Medical Board of California, and increased the board's power to screen and discipline doctors. The made that the medical board would protect consumers so that they didn't have to file lawsuits. But look where we are now. Micra has proven to prevent a huge percentage of victims from ever getting to court in the first place. And their only other recourse is to file a complaint with this board. But this board is closing 96% of the complaints that are filed. So victims are basically screwed. This board isn't holding up its end of the deal that created Micra in 1974 in the first place. So Carrie, that victim's points were right on, and you had no right to dismiss her. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. The next request is from Hannah Ree. Give me just a moment to unmute your mic. I had to remember to unmute mine as well. Okay. Hannah Ree, are you there?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to sincerely thank you all for including Black Patients Matter at the interested parties meeting. I know initially we were marginalized and, you know, we had all those lawsuits, but hopefully things will improve. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. I see no additional requests for public comment at this time. We'll go ahead and close the Q&A window. Please go ahead and proceed, Ms. Pines.
Okay, let's move to our next agenda item, which is item 6, executive management reports. Ms. Lally.
Good afternoon, members. Please turn to executive management.
I called in.
Oops.
And I'm told.
All right. Please turn to the executive management reports under agenda item 6 in your board packets. I will not review each report in detail, but rather highlight items I would like to bring to the board's attention since the last quarterly meeting in January. As President Pines shared, the board anxiously awaits Mr. Prasifka's arrival in June and looks forward to introducing all new members of the executive team, including the new Deputy Director and Chief of Legislation at the board meeting in August. Since the January meeting, the board's fund condition remains pretty much unchanged. The board's fund is at 2.5 months reserve at the end of the current fiscal year. By next fiscal year 2021, the board will be at 0.6 months reserve. At the January meeting, the board discussed the fee study conducted by CPS HR Consulting, voted to approve the recommended fee level increases, and instructed staff to seek legislation to make the necessary statutory changes. As you are aware, on March 16th, the legislature recessed due to COVID-19, postponing all bill hearings. The Assembly did return on this past Monday, May 4th, and the Senate is scheduled to return next Monday, May 11th. After both the Assembly and Senate return to session this month, I anticipate more information will be available regarding the legislation the board needs to raise its fee levels in statute. The response to COVID-19 has been extremely fluid, and I want to thank the board members, management, and staff for your leadership during these unprecedented times. The services the medical board provides, especially during this pandemic, are essential to the continued health and safety of all Californians. My sincerest appreciation for this team's commitment to your fellow Californians, as well as your willingness to meet this moment in our state's history. The health, safety, and well-being of the employees of the board has been the daily priority of the board's management team. Telework options, staggered work shift, physical distancing protocols, closing the public access to the board's building, and frequent cleaning of high-contact common areas, as well as frequent distribution of supplies such as cloth masks, gloves, and hand sanitizer, as well as education on prevention practices, are just some of the measures the board has implemented to combat COVID-19 in the workplace. Additionally, board management has been extremely focused on providing needed coping resources for our staff, including sharing the California Surgeon General's playbook for stress relief during COVID-19, sharing employee assistant program resources, and also having staff and management participate in a Zoom meeting session with a licensed therapist focused on tools to help employees cope with the life stresses associated with COVID-19. In early March, COVID-19 information was posted in board offices and distributed to staff. A link to the California Department of Public Health's COVID-19 website was added to the board's website, and the board began working with state agencies, including DCA, CDPH, the Pharmacy Board, the Federation of State Medical Boards, and others on daily stakeholder inquiries. The board also began developing telework options for employees, including full-time telework and telework shift options comprised of 5 hours in the office with 3 hours at home, either in the morning or the afternoon. Of the board's 153 filled positions, 56% of the staff are on full or partial telework. Approximately 18% of staff are mission critical, meaning their duties cannot be done remotely. This includes the board's call center, mailroom, cashiering, administrative, and business services staff. For the board employees working in the office, physical distancing protocols are in place and prevention protocols have become common practice, including additional cleaning by the building's janitorial services. On March 20th, the board's Sacramento office closed to the public until further notice. Information on the closure was emailed to interested parties and posted on the board's website. The public and licensees may contact the board by email, telephone, and U.S. mail, and that's been working just fine. In response to COVID-19, the enforcement program was successful in providing telework options for their staff, either full-time or through shift work, to adhere to the mission of protecting the public. Workflows and workloads are being addressed daily by management. Some of the process changes the enforcement program has implemented in response to COVID-19 include, with the current travel restrictions, the probation and complaint investigation units are conducting all interviews with physicians by phone. To accommodate the Deputy Attorney Generals who are also teleworking, the board set up access to a shared document application so transmittals can be sent immediately from the board to the supervising DAGs. While their offices are closed, AG staff are going to the office on a rotating basis to acquire mail. The Office of Administrative Hearing offices are also closed and staff are teleworking. Cases or settlement conferences that are moving forward are being handled by telephone, including interim suspension order hearings. Since January, the enforcement program has received several complaints from various sources regarding COVID-19. The nature of the complaints include providers advertising or providing COVID tests regardless of the symptoms. A majority of the allegations included inflated prices for these types of tests. Providers also disseminating incorrect information to the public via social media or the television regarding COVID-19, which the consumer deemed dangerous. And finally, providers selling treatment or cures for COVID-19 regardless of the symptoms, and often the complaints included allegations of high prices for the cure. In mid-March, the director of the Emergency Medical Services Authority, or also called EMSA, finalized the policy to allow out-of-state licensees to practice in California in response to COVID-19. And this is pursuant to Business and Professions Code Section 900. EMSA only accepts requests for out-of-state medical personnel approval from a California medical facility, telehealth agency contracted with a California medical facility, or a staffing agency providing staffing to California medical facility that intends to utilize these resources. A California medical facility is interpreted as a hospital, facility, doctor's office, alternate care site, or healthcare business currently approved and/or located in California to provide medical care or medical advice. EMSA requires the facility or staffing agency to complete an authorization request form and submit it to EMSA for approval. EMSA reviews all of the out-of-state licensees to ensure they have an active license in another state before approving. To date, the board has been notified that EMSA has approved 4,496 out-of-state teledoc physicians and 140 out-of-state physicians. Next, the licensing program has been especially busy since the January board meeting. As you remember, postgraduate training changes went into effect January 1st, 2020. All current residents attending postgraduate training in California who have not been issued a license must obtain a postgraduate training license this year. Licensing timelines are always very important to the board and are especially important during the COVID-19 public health emergency. The board has been working hard to maintain the initial review of applications within approximately 34 days. The rate of physicians renewing online remains constant, and the board encourages all to renew early and online via the BREEZE system. The board's docs portal, which we talked about at the January meeting, has been instrumental in the past months with the submission of primary source documents to the board. The board's portal has 7 medical schools, 330 postgraduate training programs, and 118 registered users. During the state of emergency, in addition to the docs portal, the board is accepting documents through the U.S. mail, as well as electronically from specified e-service providers for transcripts and diplomas. Additionally, the board works with applicants on a case-by-case basis to identify all available options for accepting primary source documents while taking into account the limitations placed on schools and programs by COVID-19. The licensing program has also fielded several inquiries regarding the United States Medical Licensing Exam, or also known as the USMLE. Prometric is the company that USMLE utilizes for administration of computer-based USMLE exams at secure test centers. Last week, Prometric reopened many of their test centers across the United States and Canada. While they have given priority to USMLE examinees because they represent essential healthcare personnel, there will not be enough room for all examinees to take the test when they choose to. Seating for examinees at the test centers, for example, is likely to be every other seat to ensure physical distancing. The Federation of State Medical Boards has been working with Prometric to ensure the availability of the USMLE and reduce the burden on students and medical schools. Together, they are exploring alternative testing sites such as medical schools, remote proctoring, and other options, and hope to complete this analysis by the end of June. The licensing program has also received questions about LiveScan fingerprinting services. Pursuant to the governor's executive order issued March 4th, fingerprinting services are essential during COVID-19, and as such, many locations remain open across the state. The California Department of Justice maintains a list of all open LiveScan facilities by county on its website. The board encourages applicants to use the DOJ website list when looking to complete their fingerprint requirements. On March 30th, Governor Newsom issued Executive Order N-39-20, giving the Director of the Department of Consumer Affairs the authority to waive any statutory or regulatory requirements pertaining to healing arts boards, including the medical board. Board staff continues to work with DCA to submit and review waiver requests to assist licensees during COVID-19. On March 31st, the DCA director issued 2 waivers impacting board licensees. The first waiver pertained to license renewals. For licensees whose license expire between March 31st and June 30 of 2020, continuing education requirements are temporarily waived. Licensees must satisfy continuing education requirements within 6 months, or that specific date is September 30th, 2020, unless the waiver is extended. The second waiver pertained to license reactivation. This order waives continuing education and fee requirements for licensees seeking to restore a retired, inactive, or canceled license. The waiver applies only to licensees whose retired, inactive, or voluntarily canceled status occurred within the past 5 years. A license reactivated or restored pursuant to this waiver is valid for a maximum of 6 months, or when the state of emergency ceases to exist, whichever is sooner. The application to restore a license to active status went live on DCA's website on April 2nd. Since this date, the board has received 157 waiver requests. Of the 157 waiver requests, 47 have been approved and 107 have been denied. The majority of the denials were because the individual did not qualify for the waiver, meaning their license was in canceled status for more than 5 years, or their license had been surrendered or revoked. Additional waivers issued by the DCA Director of interest to licensees of the board include, excuse me, the physician assistant waiver. The order waives, excuse me, sorry about that. The order waives the 4-to-1 ratio on physicians to physician assistant supervision in California. The second waiver is the nurse practitioner supervision waiver. This order waives supervision requirements and allows a physician to supervise more than 4 nurse practitioners at any one time when furnishing or ordering drugs or devices. The waiver terminates in 60 days from the date of the order, which is June 13th, 2020, unless it is extended. The third waiver is the nurse midwife supervision waiver. This order waives supervision requirements and allows physicians to supervise more than 4 certified nurse midwives at one time. The waiver terminates again in 60 days or on June 13th, 2020, unless it is extended. And finally, just yesterday afternoon, the DCA Director issued a temporary waiver extending the deadline to obtain postgraduate training license, also known as a PTL, until August 31st, 2020. Any resident participating in an ACGME accredited postgraduate training program as of January 1st of this year, and who is also not eligible for licensure, needs to have a postgraduate training license by August 31st, 2020, in order to continue in their program. An email blast was sent to applicants, schools, training programs, and stakeholders regarding the deadline extension, and the board's website was also updated yesterday afternoon. The board's communications internally and externally have been essential throughout COVID-19. I would especially like to thank the board's Consumer Information Unit, or our call center, for their extraordinary service to licensees and consumers, fielding nearly 19,000 calls since January. Additionally, the communications team has responded to over 1,300 phone calls, emails, and media inquiries related to COVID-19 since March. A majority of the communications the board has received pertain to licensing requirements during the state of emergency, including physicians seeking waivers to return to active status from a retired or inactive status, requests for help with licensing document delays due to medical school closures and assorted issues due to the pandemic, inquiries from out-of-state medical providers wanting to assist in California, healthcare practitioners interested in joining the California Health Corps, and questions pertaining to the waivers issued by the Department of Consumer Affairs. Since February, the board has issued several alerts to stakeholders through email blasts, the board's website, Facebook, and Twitter sites, as well as the board has communicated through its webmaster email account. Finally, I would like to conclude with a personal update. As President Pines shared, I have accepted a governor's appointment as the Chief Deputy Director at the Department of Consumer Affairs. This is an extraordinary opportunity to serve California and Governor Newsom's administration while still sharing in the important work of the medical board. When I joined the team in 2017, I had no idea how many wonderful friends and memories I would make here at the medical board. My sincerest thanks to the board members, all of you, for your guidance, support, and encouragement along this wonderful journey we've had. And my sincere gratitude for the unwavering dedication of board staff. A lot of change has come their way in the past 6 months, and most recently in the past 2 months, and they've accepted it with willingness, positivity, and teamwork. They've taught me a lot. I will transition to DCA in the coming months after executive leadership is on board at headquarters here in Sacramento. While I will miss all of you very much, I am very excited to take on this new opportunity and look forward to working with you, or continued work and working with you again in my new role at DCA. This concludes my report and any questions from the board members.
Thank you, Ms. Lally. We really appreciate it. We're going to miss you.
Dennis, Dr. Ganade. So, Christine, just a question on board item 6C, page 8, the license is issued. It looks like there's a significant steep curve going down. It started first quarter at 2,500 and the third quarter is 1,000. Is there a reason?
Let's see. I'm sorry. Which page are you on?
6C/8.
8. Hang on for just one sec. Definitely with the postgraduate training license changes, you know, we're going to see that shift because you have folks now shifting to the PTL. So yeah.
Okay, that explains. I was worried that maybe doctors decided not to come to California. So
No. Well, I hope not.
we hope not too. Thank you.
Any other board members have any comments or questions?
Ms. Pines, this is Dr. Thorpe. I just wanted to say just a big thank you to Ms. Lalia for stepping up as I was a new board member when Ms. Kirchmeier left and when Ms. Lawley took over, and I just want to tell her thank you for all the hard work, and of course Mary Kate as well. But anyway, I appreciate all the work that you guys have done. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Thorpe. You're so kind.
Any other board members have any comments or questions?
TJ Watkins. Hello.
Yes.
I would thank Christine as well for doing an outstanding job during this COVID time, and wishing her good luck on her new venture at DCA, which we be great at. My question is, Christine, what has the COVID response from the board done to our budget? Not to be too blunt about that, or was there any that we need to be aware of?
In terms of expenditures, you know, we've been living within our means. I think just statewide, we'll be seeing some budget changes. I mean, you've probably seen it in the media. Governor Newsom is looking at some changes in the May revise based on projections of revenues. So, you know, obviously, getting a fee increase is always going to be a heavy lift, and a fee increase during a time of economic uncertainty is an even heavier lift. So we're, like I said, I think we're just going to have to wait and see once everybody gets back into session, and by everybody I mean the Assembly and the Senate, to see where everything kind of shakes out. But at this point, the board continues to count every dime and every penny because we know how limited we are. And you know, during the COVID response, thankfully we have an incredibly talented IT team, and I'm looking at Sean in the room with me today, who literally in 48 hours stood up, you know, telework VPN that we didn't have days prior. So their nimbleness and being able to work with the minimal resources we had, you know, to put 56% of our staff teleworking on, you know, such a short time frame was miraculous. Without IT guidance and legal's guidance through this storm, it would be near impossible. Both teams as well as all of the staff and management have really hunkered down and dug in and stepped up.
Well, thank you, and to the team.
Thank you, TJ. I appreciate it.
Hello, it's Dr. Lewis. Hello?
We can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me? Great. Hi, Christine. God, if I thank you again and again, your head's going to get so big you won't be able to get out of the building. So, yes, I so much remember you when you first started, and a little apprehensive. You were following in big footsteps, but you actually fulfilled those big footsteps. So thank you again. I have one question about the budget. Are staff salaries for new hires protected at the moment from any clawback of funds?
There was a budget letter that was released last Friday from the Department of Finance about current year expenditures and being very mindful of any additional spending. The direction at this point is there is guidance and approval to continue with essential hires. So we are continuing to fill our vacancies, as soon as possible. Specific to, the two exec staff member, the Deputy Director and Chief of Legislation that we're currently in the process for hiring. I do not believe any salaries will be impacted at this point. But again, as the state's fiscal forecast begins to take, more shape in the months ahead, things obviously could change. But at this point, we're continuing to hire, and we haven't received any other direction not to, or hiring freeze or salary freezes at this point.
Okay, that's great news, because those are two positions we definitely have to fill. So very important to the medical board.
Agree with you. They're critically essential.
Okay, thanks for that.
Dr. Yip, can I comment, Ms. Pine?
Yes.
I've been, like the other board member, congratulate Jennifer and Christine moving on, and also concerned with departure of all the top executive, what happened. But I want to share with the board member, I'm very comfortable now that I have two deep discussions with Janet Jones, our chief of enforcement. She's really strong, her vision, and a heart to improve efficiency. And as you know, our hands are tied in certain areas like the investigators and the AG's office, but she really planning to work closely with them, hopefully improve efficiency and get our function going, even though we have a vacuum in the leadership, maybe in the next few months. But I'm comfortable with a strong chief still remain Janet Jones, okay?
I agree, Dr. Yep. Good point.
This is Howard. May I speak?
Yes.
Christine, I feel badly that we have to give you a virtual hug. And I guess all of us feel badly with Kim's departure and your departure and Jennifer Samo's departure. But I think that the board should acknowledge that the fact that all of you are moving up to the DCA is just a reminder to us of the incredible job that you and your team have been doing. Because if you weren't doing a good job, you wouldn't have this terrific opportunity. And as I said to Kim, we're actually looking forward to continuing to work with you.
Exactly.
And you and Kim and Jennifer being in the DCA, I think creates a terrific opportunity for the new medical board leadership to work with you to try to get some uniformity in terms of how we protect the public amongst all of the healthcare boards that exist. It's hard to imagine, but I think there are about 20 different healthcare boards. And the human body doesn't come in that many different pieces. It's really a whole. So I would hope that over the next few years, we have an opportunity to create a more uniform standard of care and work together and collaboratively so that we'll be doing a much better job of protecting the health and consumers. So congratulations to you. We'll all shed a tear, but we'll also be very happy for you and for our future. Thanks, Christine.
Absolutely, Dr. Kraus. Thank you.
Any other board members who want to make a comment or ask a question about the report Ms. Lally just gave? I will now ask the host to call for public comments.
Okay, I've gone ahead and activated the Q&A window again. Anyone wishing to make a public comment, please go ahead and type in a message into that box. Okay, first up, Hannah Ree. Let me unmute your microphone. Hannah Ree, are you there?
Yes, thank you. Hannah Ree here for Black Patients Matter. That was a great presentation, but there was one statement made in regards to, I guess there were some complaints about COVID-19 tests being administered regardless of the signs and symptoms. In Los Angeles, which has one of the highest number of African American patients there, in the city of, and I believe in the county of Los Angeles, anyone who requests a test can have a test, because it turns out that the signs and symptoms that are being honored are those that are generally found in non-Black patients. And so, in fact, African American patients present with things called ecchymosis, blurred vision. So it's important that we respect the underrepresented patients in our society and not turn to data which is backed by or has been studied upon patients of non-colored patients. And if in fact we have physicians on the board who do not understand or respect or care to learn more about Black health, we believe it's time for you to step down. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. Next speaker I have is Eric Andrus. Give me a moment to unmute your microphone. Eric Andrus, are you there?
I'm here.
Please go ahead with your public comment.
Hey, Felix, have you Googled Jenna Jones? She had a lot of problems in Arizona. Number two, at the last meeting, I asked why the board never responds to me. And Christine Lally glared at me and said to me, "You know why." Is that also why, since February of 2018, the Patient Safety League has filed 18 complaints against doctors, and we've only received responses on 5 of them? You're also quick to congratulate everyone on the jobs that they do, and you really don't seem to be aware how bad a job the staff is actually doing. Do you all get in there and actually look and see what's not going on? Do you not hear what the patient advocates and the victims are saying to you? They're screwing up. They're doing a terrible job. Christine Lally's done a terrible job. She's done nothing since she's been here. So, Christine, since you were so rude to me and unhelpful, I'm not the least bit unafraid to say good riddance.
Okay, thank you for your public comment. The next up is Marianne Hollingsworth. Let me unmute the microphone. Marianne Hollingsworth, are you there?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, please turn down the speakers you have in the background.
Okay. Better? Is it
Try again. Try again now.
Okay.
It's still quite echo.
Okay.
No, there's still a echo.
I can go to the phone.
Okay, let's You're connected twice. Let's see if this one's any better. Are you still there? Marianne Hollingsworth, I've unmuted your computer connection, I believe, at this point. Can you try that one? I think you're on the phone the first time. Try the phone again.
Phone. Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead now. Okay.
Okay, this is Marian Hollingsworth, and I was just wondering about the enforcement report, which stated that the number of time it takes for a complaint to be resolved. Your material stated that the median number of days to complete a complaint from start to finish was 1,083 days, or 2.97 years. That's 3 long years. Washington State has a law of 5.5 months for the investigation part of the complaints. Can you comment on California's extremely long time to resolve complaints now or at a future meeting? This number seems very excessive. Dangerous doctors in cases like sexual misconduct or severe gross negligence should not wait this long. The public should not wait this long for the medical board to act to protect the public. And I would hope that you would look at these numbers and figure out a way of lowering them for public safety. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. That is the last request I see in the Q&A box, so I will go ahead and turn that back off for now. Ms.
Thank you. Moving to the next item, which is item 7, discussion and possible action on recommendations from the Special Faculty Permit Review Committee. Dr. Benanadel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Special Faculty Permit Review Committee recommendations. On March 25, 2020, the Special Faculty Permit Review Committee held a teleconference meeting. During the meeting, the committee reviewed and discussed the 2 applications. Dr. Stefan Fredericksdorf, application for a special faculty appointment with the University of California, San Francisco School of Medicine, and Dr. Yoginder Singh's application for a special faculty appointment with Loma Linda University School of Medicine. Please turn to item 7 in your packet. The first applicant is Dr. Stefan Fredericksdorf. Dr. Fredericksdorf's area of expertise is pediatric pain medicine and palliative care. Dr. Fredericksdorf currently holds the position of Medical Director of the Department of Pain Medicine, Palliative Care, and Integrative Medicine at Children's Hospital, Children's in Minnesota. Dr. Fredericksdorf is the President-elect of the Special Interest Group of Pain in Childhood of the International Association for the Study of Pain and the 2016 recipient of the Elizabeth Narcissian Award for Outstanding Education Achievements by the American Pain Society. With funding from National Institutes of Health and the National Cancer Institute, Dr. Fredericksdorf established the Education in Palliative and End-of-Life Care Pediatrics, an international program for teaching pediatric palliative care. If approved by the board, Dr. Fredericksdorf will hold a full-time faculty position as Professor of Pediatrics with a clinical emphasis on the management of pain, palliative care, and integrative medicine for the Benioff Children's Hospital at UCSF. Dr. Fredericksdorf will aid UCSF in providing innovative pain management strategies to children living with complex conditions, as well as transition his national CME programs in pediatric pain medicine to UCSF and develop a new national course in pediatric integrative medicine. UCSF has demonstrated that Dr. Fredericksdorf is academically eminent to hold a full-time professor clinical faculty appointment at UCSF. The committee reviewed Dr. Fredericksdorf's application and qualifications and recommends that the board approve Dr. Fredericksdorf for application for special faculty permit. This concludes my report on Dr. Fredericksdorf. And are there any questions from the board?
So I move to approve this doctor for a special faculty permit.
Okay, Ron, you jumped the gun, but yes, I will second the motion.
Oh, I jumped the gun. Sorry, I can reverse it.
No, it's good. Any discussion? Okay, Madam Chair, it's yours now.
Okay. I'm going to ask the host to call for public comments on this special faculty permit review.
Okay, I've opened back up the Q&A panel. If you would like to make a public comment on this agenda item, please indicate so in the Q&A box. Okay, first comment from Hannah Ree. Give me a moment to unmute your microphone. Hannah Ree, are you there?
Yes, hello, thank you. Yes, so Hannah Ree, Black Patients Matter. You know, that he sounds, the faculty member sounds very impressive academically and experience-wise, but I would voice some concern as to his lack of experience in treating a diversified patient population, and not just racially, but religiously. And the fact that it was not even mentioned whether or not he had any experience is still not relevant to this board. So I find that there are board members who are biased. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. At this time, I don't see any additional speakers requesting public comment. So I will go ahead and close the Q&A box and turn it back over to Ms. Pipes.
Members, please unmute your computers. Ms. Cruz Jones, please perform the roll call.
Dr. Gonadev.
Yes.
Dr. Hawkins.
Yes.
Dr. Kraus.
Yes.
Ms. Lawson.
Yes.
Ms. Lubiano.
Yes.
Dr. Lewis.
Aye.
Dr. Mahmood.
Yes.
Dr. Thorpe.
Aye.
Mr. Warmoth.
Yes.
Mr. Watkins.
Yes.
Dr. Yip.
Yes.
Ms. Pines.
Yes. Okay. The recommendation for the special faculty review permit is approved.
Thank you. The second application is for Dr. Yoginder Singh. Dr. Singh's area of expertise is in the field of neonatology, specifically in the area of functional neonatal echocardiography. Dr. Singh is currently distinguished faculty and recipient of the Clinical Excellence Award at the Cambridge University Hospitals in the United Kingdom. Dr. Singh is a pediatrician certified and double boarded in neonatology and cardiology subspecialties. Dr. Singh is academic, educational, and research lead for the National Pediatrician with expertise in cardiology special interest group. Dr. Singh has developed and established the guidelines for the practice of functional neonatology echocardiography. Additionally, under the auspices of the European Society of Pediatric and Neonatal Intensive Care, he developed training program for the practice of targeted functional neonatal echocardiograms. If approved by the board, Dr. Singh will hold a full-time faculty position as professor in the Department of Pediatrics and as an attending physician for the neonatology division at Loma Linda University. Dr. Singh will provide the expertise needed to create a local point of care ultrasonography training center, allowing intensivists to obtain training and certification in neonatal functional echocardiography. Loma Linda University has demonstrated that Dr. Singh is academically eminent to hold a full-time professor clinical faculty appointment at Loma Linda University. The committee reviewed Dr. Singh's application and qualifications and recommends that the board approve Dr. Singh's application for a special faculty permit. This concludes my report on Dr. Singh. Are there any questions from the board? Not, I make a motion. Following motion, the board approve Dr. Singh for Business and Professions Code Section 2168.1A, 1B, special faculty permit appointment at Loma Linda University School of Medicine. Thank you.
Second.
I will now ask the host to call for public comments.
Okay, I've opened up the Q&A window again, if anyone would like to make a public comment. Okay, I see no request for public comment at this time. I'll go ahead and, so I'll go ahead and close the window down. You may proceed, Ms. Pines.
Members, please unmute your computers. Ms. Cruz-Jones, please perform the roll call.
Dr. Gonadev,
Yes.
Dr. Hawkins,
Yes.
Dr. Kraus,
Yes.
Ms. Lawson,
Yes.
Ms. Lubiano,
Yes.
Dr. Lewis,
Aye.
Dr. Mahmood,
Yes.
Dr. Thorpe,
Yes.
Mr. Warmoth,
Yes.
Dr. Watkins,
Yes.
Dr. Yip,
Yes.
and Ms. Pines.
Yes. Especially faculty permit for Dr. Singh has been approved. Members, please mute your computers. Moving to the next item, which is item 8, update, discussion, and possible action on recommendations from the Midwifery Advisory Council meeting. Ms. Lally.
Thank you, Ms. Pine. Ms. Holzer, Chair of the Midwifery Advisory Council, is working today and unfortunately unable to participate in our meeting. With her permission, I will present agenda item 8 on her behalf and respectfully ask the board to approve the following agenda items for the next Midwifery Advisory Council meeting on August 20th, 2020. The following agenda items are: number 1, establishing goals for the MAC, update on midwifery related legislation, report from the MAC chair, update on midwifery program, report from the task force and discussion regarding the data collected on the licensed midwife annual report, report from the task force on Medi-Cal related issues, reappointment of members to task force on Medi-Cal related issues, discussion on revisions to the practice guidelines for the California licensed midwives, selection of a new member to the MAC, discussion on expanding scope of practice for midwives to include 1 year of postpartum care, and finally, the last agenda item, discussion regarding legislative solutions to address the stalemate on creating regulations for licensed midwives.
Thank you, Ms. Lally. Members, please unmute your phone. I have a motion to approve the agenda items for the next Midwifery Advisory Council meeting.
Second.
I'm sorry, member, who made the motion?
So moved, Dr. Hawkins.
Thank you, Dr. Hawkins. And the second, Dr. Lewis?
Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments from the members? I will now ask the host for public comments.
Thank you. I've opened up the Q&A panel again. If anyone would like to make a comment, please indicate so in the box. I don't see anyone indicating they would like to make a public comment. I'll go ahead and deactivate the window and turn it back to you, Ms. Pines.
Ms. Cruz Jones, please call the roll. Members, unmute your phone.
Dr. Gonadev,
Aye.
Dr. Hawkins,
Yes.
Dr. Kraus,
Yes.
Ms. Lawson,
Yes.
Ms. Lubiano,
Yes.
Dr. Lewis,
Aye.
Dr. Mahmood,
Yes.
Dr. Thorpe,
Yes.
Mr. Warmoth,
Yes.
Mr. Watkins, Dr. Yip,
Yes.
and Ms. Pines.
Yes. Meeting agenda is approved. Moving to the next item, which is item 9, discussion and possible action on legislation and regulations. Ms. Lally.
Thank you, Ms. Pines. Please, members, turn to tab 9 in your meeting materials. We'll begin with agenda item 9, the 2020 legislation for review today. You'll see you have a tracker list in your meeting materials. On your tracker list, there are 5 bills listed that we will be discussing today. Man, do I miss Jennifer Samos. Bear with me. The first bill we'll be discussing is AB 890, introduced by Assemblymember Wood. At the May meeting last year, the board voted to oppose this bill. Since this meeting, the bill was amended in January 23rd, 2020. AB 890 would authorize a nurse practitioner to provide specified services without physician supervision if the nurse practitioner meets additional education, examination, and training requirements. You have the bill and the analysis in your packet, but I will just quickly go through high level some of the provisions of this bill. First, AB 890 creates the Advanced Practice Registered Nursing Board within the Department of Consumer Affairs. And that board will be comprised of 9 members, 4 NPs, 3 physicians, and 2 public members. The bill would require the new board, the APRNB board, by regulation to define minimum standards for a nurse practitioner to transition to practice without the routine presence of a physician and surgeon. It also authorizes a nurse practitioner to perform specified functions in organized health settings without standardized procedures. This includes ordering, performing, and interpreting diagnostic procedures, certifying disabilities, and prescribing, administering, and dispensing and furnishing controlled substances, if the nurse practitioner completes additional education and training requirements, including passing a validated national certification exam and completing a supervised 3-year transition to practice period. The bill also requires an NP who wishes to practice without standardized procedures outside of an organized health setting to have additional 3 years of licensed practice experience, as well as have an additional certificate issued by the APRN board. AB 890 requires a nurse practitioner to inform all new patients in a language understandable to the patient that the NP is not a physician and surgeon and requires translation for Spanish speakers. It would require a nurse practitioner to refer a patient to a physician or other licensed healthcare provider if a situation or condition of a patient is beyond the scope of education and training of the NP. The bill would also require the new APRN board to work with DCA's Office of Professional Examination Services to perform an occupational analysis of the NPs performing certain functions, and would require the APRN board to identify and develop supplemental examination for licensees based on this assessment. In the past, the board has opposed bills that remove physician supervision for NPs, allowing for independent practice. However, this bill does include more oversight mechanisms, including a separate board under the Department of Consumer Affairs, and this bill does require 3 years of training for NPs who practice outside the specified settings, which is intended to be similar to the postgraduate training required for physicians. According to the author, the intent of the bill is to increase coverage, access, and affordability of healthcare for all Californians. California has a shortage of primary care physicians and needs to engage in additional strategies to meet the state's needs. According again to the author, providing full practice authority to nurse practitioners would assist with these shortages. The Assembly member also cites a dozen other states, the District of Columbia, and the Veterans Administration, who currently allow full practice authority to nurse practitioners. The board should consider these issues in its discussion of this bill.
Ms. Lally. Members, please unmute your computers. So do we want to discuss this? Do you want to put forth, Ms. Lally, do you want to put forth a suggestion, a recommendation? Now you.
The board's current position on the bill is opposed, but we've, gone through the amendments to the bill. Those were the ones that I ran through. So was definitely leaving it to board discussion if they wanted to continue with the opposed position or have something else in mind.
Dr. Hawkins had a question. Dr. Hawkins, can I ask a question? Currently, not uncommon to see advanced practice nurse practitioners working in the hospital. I just wonder how this scope of practice is going to help with the folks out in the community. We can understand that would help in the hospital. You have nurse practitioners working in the ICU and with cardiologists and other specialists. I just wonder in terms of general practice nurse practitioners, where some will address those groups. I don't know if anyone knows that answer that question.
Ms. Pines, this is Dr. Thorpe. Not that I have an answer to that question.
Okay.
But I think there is that is the question in other states and in the VA, where it's a controlled environment, they basically assign people to where they're going to go. That's a different system, and it's a different way of doing things even. But in primary care, as Dr. Hawkins points out, the issue has always been we definitely need more primary care in the community, no question about that. And whatever we can do to get more physician assistants, nurse practitioners, family docs, internal medicine docs who are doing primary care in the community, I think that's going to be a very important thing. The question is, does this bill actually provide for that? The issue really becomes when a person decides to go into becoming a nurse practitioner, or any professional field, whether it's nurse practitioner or whether it's PA or whether it's a physician. The part of the decision is made based on what you really enjoy doing. Part of the decision is made based on the economics of it. And there is increasingly a drain of, at least in my experience, a drain of primary care nurse practitioners and PAs to specialties because they can get paid significantly more by even in an outpatient setting by being a GI nurse practitioner or a cardiology nurse practitioner, as opposed to a primary care practitioner. The work is harder. You have to see more patients to be able to make a living, basically. And this bill, although it will definitely decrease the supervision from physicians, I'm not sure it actually solves the problem. So I would speak against this bill. I would speak against the board having a position in support of this bill.
Okay. So you support us remaining opposed to the bill?
This is Howard. May I comment?
Yes.
I have mixed feelings about expanding scope of practice and independent practice in general. Our mission is to protect consumers and to protect Californians, and to that degree, anything and everything that we can do to expand access to care is a good thing. But it has to be access to a high quality of care. And if nurse practitioners are going to practice independently, they need to demonstrate that the quality of care that will be provided as an independent practitioner will be equivalent to that can be provided by a primary care physician. I recall that when the podiatrists sought expanded care, that they allowed a period of time whereby they would be under supervision both by the podiatry board and the medical board, so that the medical board continued to have some oversight that as non-physician practitioners expanded their scope into that which is defined by the practice of medicine and surgery, that the medical board could feel assured that they were meeting that same standard. And I don't know that we have those safeguards here, even though we're creating a new board that will have physicians on the board. It's still, by being separate and distinct from the medical board, allows for a different standard of care. The other thing which concerns me is, perhaps it's unique in California, but we have a corporate bar, or bar against the corporate practice of medicine in California, which I think is vitally important in the protection of consumers. And the reason for that is that as physicians would become employees of a corporation, or as nurse practitioners would become employees, I kind of imagine nurse practitioners becoming employed by CVS or by Walmart. Once a practitioner is an employee, there are both overt and covert influences on the part of the employer to influence how medicine is practiced. And you might imagine a nurse practitioner employee in the CVS who is pressured by some corporate edict to prescribe more or to meet quotas of prescriptions and the types of things which can be prescribed. So any independent practice bill, I think, should also need to have the same bar against the corporate practice of medicine as do physicians. So lacking some things which I think are critically important in the protection of consumers, I would be in favor of the medical board maintaining an opposed position on this bill.
This is Carrie. I do want to point out that this bill does add a bar to the corporate practice of medicine by practitioners.
Oh, great.
What?
Oh, this bill does impose a bar on the corporate practice of medicine for nurse practitioners. Just in case that's an issue for members, I wanted to make sure that's addressed.
What about the general practice issue that Dr. Hawkins brought up? Is there anything in the writing of the bill that addresses that?
Well, I think Dr. Thorpe made a good point that the bill removes supervision requirements if nurse practitioners meet the specified requirements, but it doesn't require them to practice in any particular specialty. And so the idea may be to increase access to care, primary care, especially in underserved communities, but there's not a requirement that nurse practitioners practice in that specialty or in underserved communities. And so there still could be a draw to go into specialty practice where the pay is better and it's more focused and maybe less onerous.
This is Dr. Lewis. I worry about scope of practice bills, and I know we've traditionally opposed them. I think the other one was the optometrist scope of practice. I know Dr. Kraus had strong reservations about that. But once we allow scope of practice bills to creep in, the creep might extend further, and that concerns me. So I would also feel that we should stick with our previous recommendations and oppose this bill for many reasons that most of them have already been stated.
Is there anyone else, any other member that would like to comment? Is there an amendment right now? We have it. I'm sorry, somebody want to speak?
Ms. Pines, this is Dr. Thorpe again. Can I just make one more comment?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or just ask a question, really? Do we know, I mean, Assemblymember Woods is trying to do the right thing, I think, here, but the real concern, because what the point of all the supportive language is to try to increase the number of primary care physicians, especially in underserved areas, whether that's the inner city or whether that's in rural areas or in areas that are not economically as comfortable or whatever you want to say. But would Assemblymember Woods be willing? I mean, I think if he was willing to actually make these independent practitioners or have some part of this bill that would strongly encourage them in one way or another to become primary care physicians in underserved areas, then I could be very supportive of this. But the way it's written, I don't see that this is. I just think it's going to decrease the supervision, potentially decrease the quality of care that's being given, and not really solve the primary care deficit that we really need to solve. So, I think we could send a message to the Assembly member that we could be interested in supporting it if you were willing to include language where it would be a little more focused on where those nurse practitioners would practice.
This is Dr. Lewis. As I remember, the Union of American Physicians and Dentists had approached Jim Wood on multiple occasions, and I don't think he was interested in any accepting any other ways or any amendments to his bill, because the union would have liked to have him focus in underserved areas, but I don't think he was interested because I would have heard about it. And it's almost like, Dr. Thorpe, you'd want to say, well, there's loan forgiveness for the advanced practitioners if they go to a underserved area, but that's not even in here. And that might be more attractive. But I agree with you, it's not in here. So,
do we have any other discussion from members?
can I make a motion?
Yes, please make a motion.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion that we oppose AB 890. I think that's simple enough, right? We oppose AB 890.
Point of information.
Yes.
Is it necessary to take an opposed position if that is already our position?
The bill was amended in January, so that's why we were bringing it back to the board for additional consideration.
Thank you.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Are there any other questions or comments from members?
Can I have clarity on who the second was from?
Dr. Godonady?
We had at least 2 seconds. Mine was one of them. This is Howard.
Oh, okay. I'll now ask the host to call for public comments.
Thank you, Ms. Pines. I've opened up the Q&A window. If anyone would like to make a public comment on this bill, please indicate so in the window. Okay, I'm not seeing any public comment requests at this time. A few more seconds. Okay, I've gone ahead and closed the window, Ms. Pines. You can proceed.
Okay, Ms. Bruce Jones, please call the roll.
Dr. Gonadev,
Yes.
Dr. Hawkins,
Yes.
Dr. Kraus,
Yes.
Ms. Lawson,
Yes.
Ms. Lubiano,
Yes.
Dr. Lewis,
Aye.
Dr. Mahmood,
Yes.
Dr. Thorpe,
Yes.
Mr. Warmoth,
Yes.
Mr. Watkins,
Yes.
Dr. Yip,
Yes.
and Ms. Pines.
Yes. Great. Members, please mute your computers. Ms. Lally, please continue.
All right. Our next bill is AB 2239 from Assemblymember Mainshine. This bill would allow psychiatric trainees to qualify for the Stephen M. Thompson Loan Repayment Program if they choose to practice in a county-operated mental health delivery system. The bill would define practice setting to additionally include a program or facility operated by or contracted to a county mental health plan. The bill would also raise the $1 million cap on funds flowing into the program to $2 million. According to the author, the bill seeks to expand the healthcare workforce and addresses the shortage of qualified mental health professionals by increasing the cap of the Stephen M. Thompson Loan Repayment Fund to $2 million. This bill would also provide much-needed funding for the Stephen M. Thompson Loan Repayment Fund to assist with loan repayment for physicians who agree to practice in medically underserved areas of the state. The board staff recommends that the board take a support position on this bill. May I please have a motion?
So moved.
Second, Dr. Hawkins.
Are there any questions or comments from the members?
Just a comment, Christina, I think it's a wonderful idea because mental health is actually getting worse. And I think we should encourage people to practice in underserved areas. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will now ask the host to call for public comments.
I've gone ahead and opened up the the Q&A window for public comment requests. Okay, I have a comment from Hannah Ree. Hannah Ree, are you there?
Yes, thank you. I think that's a wonderful, wonderful idea for our new and upcoming physician psychiatrists to have a greater diversified training to put on their resume. I know that in my case, the psychiatrist that was hired by the state to examine me had absolutely no background in racial diversity and religious tolerance as evidenced on his CV. And he concluded there was no mental illness, but just a mental problem of being different, unquote, outside of societal norms. So I think that's a wonderful idea to have that added requirement for our new physicians. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. I don't see any other individuals requesting public comment at this time, so I'll go ahead and close down the Q&A window, and Ms. Pines, you may proceed.
Ms. Bruce Jones, please call the roll.
Dr. Gonadev,
Yes.
Dr. Hawkins,
Yes.
Dr. Kraus,
Yes.
Ms. Lawson,
Yes.
Ms. Lubiano,
Yes.
Dr. Lewis,
Aye.
Dr. Mahmood, Dr. Thorpe,
Yes.
Mr. Warmoth,
Yeah.
Mr. Watkins, Dr. Yip,
Yes.
and Ms. Pines.
Yes. Ms. Lally, please continue.
All right, moving on to AB 2273 from Assemblymember Bloom. AB 2273 would authorize a special faculty permit holder to practice medicine in an approved academic medical center that trains more than 250 residents. This bill would expand the definition of academically eminent to include a person who is clearly outstanding in a specific field of medicine or surgery and has been offered a full-time academic appointment at the level of full professor or associate professor by the chief medical officer of an academic medical center, approved by the board's Division of Licensing. According to the author, current law allows only approved medical schools to allow themselves of Business and Professions Code sections 2168, 2113, and 2111, limiting the flexibility of independent academic medical centers to appoint foreign trained physicians without seeking the support of a California medical school. Doing so forces the academic medical center to engage in the medical school's administrative processes and delays the ability for the physician to become an active clinician treating patients in California. Also, according to the author, the legislation will allow academic medical centers such as Cedars-Sinai and a few other prominent institutions to recruit those few but extraordinary physicians and physician scientists with very specialized expertise from other countries to California. Currently, the board does not approve academic medical centers. If the board would be required to approve academic medical centers, then the board would need to adopt regulations to define the parameters in what would be required for approval. Further, the board does not have expertise on approving hospitals and would likely have to contract with an outside subject matter expert to evaluate the academic medical centers. Currently, special faculty permits are intended for medical education institutions and affiliates and would be reviewed by the board's Special Faculty Review Committee, which is comprised of one representative from each of the medical schools in California and 2 medical board members. This bill currently does not expand membership of the committee to representatives from any academic medical centers. Current law also makes it clear that the medical school that appointed the special faculty permit holder assumes direct responsibility for that individual. There is no similar provision in this proposed legislation requiring the academic medical center to assume direct responsibility for the special faculty permit holder. The board should please consider these issues in discussion of this bill.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
I think 22 years ago when we started the special faculty permit process in California, it created a great opportunity for expansion of educational and research opportunities, and that was the original goal of it, education and research. But over the last 2 decades, medical schools have actually become competitors, if you will, in the practice of medicine, and to some degree in buying up private practices have been somewhat responsible for some of the inflation that we've seen in healthcare costs as they've become clinical behemoths. So in some regard, we have to support education and research, and we need resources to train medical students and residents. But in another regard, I think special faculty permits in some cases have been used principally for clinical activity and increasing the clinical abilities and giving university medical centers more of a competitive edge. But on the other hand, we're charged with protecting Californians and protecting consumers. So whether it be for education or research or just expansion of clinical care, if in fact the special faculty permits have improved the quality of care and improved access to care in California, then we should be supportive of that. And if we can continue to expand that by allowing more than just the medical schools to have special faculty permits and also teaching centers like Cedars-Sinai, then maybe it should be expanded. So, you know, in some respect, I'm torn about what to do about this, but in that special faculty permits are intended to support education and research, I wonder if there should be some expanded requirements on those who practice under special faculty permits to be devoting at least half of their time to education and research rather than a large percentage of their time to direct clinical care. So I don't know what position to recommend on this bill, and perhaps at some future date, it'd be good for us to review what has the special faculty permit process done for us in California. So perhaps we could have a report at a future meeting to reflect back on 20 years of special faculty permits and show how it has improved education in California, and more importantly, how it's improved access to care for Californians. So I'm rather long-winded, and I don't know whether to support or oppose. So in that regard, I suppose my recommended position would be neutral. Thank you.
Thank you. I see a couple opens. Dr. Gananadev, did you want to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So I, as the chair of that committee, so I looked at it and said, you know, it's Howard is right. Once upon a time, it was for research and education, but actually, majority of it now is clinical care. And I don't have a problem expanding it to have the other than just the medical schools having that ability to recruit brain drain from the other countries who are experts in the care. And I look at it as it adds value to population of California because you are recruiting. I mean, I looked at 8th year on the medical board. I looked at all the people who we gave permit to. These are all eminent individuals who add a lot of value, but unfortunately, that is only being done at the medical schools. And like Howard said, the medical schools are actually becoming more and more competitive, absorbing a lot of others and actually making it difficult for the other non-medical school academic centers to really have the ability to recruit these people. So I think Christine mentioned a couple of things. Number one, that is, who is responsible? I think my answer is that academic medical center, which is the hospital, the hospital administration, including their medical staff, is responsible to looking after these people, make sure that they do follow. And the only other thing they had, I think they put this because it was, I gather it came from Cedars. That's why they put that limit as 250. I don't have any problem actually decreasing that limit to 150, which will make a lot more hospitals, teaching hospitals. These are not just clinical care hospitals, a lot more hospitals with the multiple residency programs to be eligible to recruit. And the reason I'm saying that is that if you look at it, ACGME is approving actually many programs in the foreign countries. I mean, it's getting to be a place where the training, and if somebody was trained and has that qualifications, I think they will add value to the care of people in California rather than hurt somebody. So that's what I support this one, and I even support decreasing the number to 150 or so.
And so, Dr. Gonadev, I hear you saying you support it, but with some amendments.
Yes.
Okay.
Dr. Thor, do you have a comment?
Thank you, Ms. Pines. Yes, well, my concern, and I understand the points that are being made by Dr. Kraus and Dr. Ganadev, and I think they're legitimate points. The question I have is, given the fiscal situation for the board currently, are we creating something that's going to be a significant increase in cost to the board if we're supposed to be approving academic medical centers and creating another bureaucracy to manage that? I think that is more of a, I mean, I think that, yes, it's great that we would have, access to some of these people, but the truth is actually how many of these people are really going to be actually providing care to the population of the state, not proportionally pretty small. And I guess my concern is just being very colloquial about it, concerned about what cost this would be to the medical board when we're already struggling to maintain our financial viability. So I would be willing to support it with amendments, but my amendments would be more concerning about how could we do this without having it be a cost to the medical board.
There anyone else? Mr. Watkins?
Yes, TJ Watkins. My concern with this bill is that zero input on if anything happens. So we wouldn't have an ability to protect the public. That responsibility will be conferred to the hospital in this case. And that's problematic because we are tasked, and I'm not sure if anything happens, how many law hospitals or the institutions to protect the public, as opposed to this board's mandate of protecting the public. I don't think being super qualified and talent is automatically gives you access to the California citizens. I think part of having a license or having a license is that we confer trust onto that physician. We entrust that physician with California residents. And the cost involved in doing this, I would more likely oppose this. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wants to make a comment?
Yeah, I just answer TJ's questions is that it will not be any different than now the medical school is responsible. So if anything happens in a hospital, medical staff of the hospital. So chief of staff of that hospital is liable when they don't report something to the medical board about a physician. So I don't see any difference here. Only thing is this is allowing these people to practice at not just only at the 11 medical school hospitals. That's why I'm not seeing anything different, neither in the protection of the public nor who supervises them. So just like the dean is responsible, so is the chief of staff at the academic medical center. So that just an answer for his question. That's all.
So my concern further there, that what's different between the medical schools is and the private hospitals is that it is private. So it runs on a profit system. And just in that difference, there's already some public protection moving out the door because it's a profit motive. And so the profit motive next to you're super qualified, we would love for you to do this, that I think is a combination downstream, a recipe for having some issues with public protection.
I know it's going back and forth, but a couple things. Number one, there is a for-profit medical school in California. It's California North State Medical School in Sacramento or Elk Grove. And the second one is I don't have any actually problem if we support only at the not-for-profit institutions rather than academic centers who are for-profit. I agree with TJ that we can't have the for-profit entities put some pressure on these people.
Okay, so I have two concerns about this. I have the cost parameter and what the cost would be to the board to evaluate the academic medical centers. Given our current budget challenges, given that we don't have an approved fee increase schedule, I don't think that we should be considering anything that we know is going to increase the budget without knowing any of the things that we don't know, which we don't know what the fee increase is going to be. And I think the second thing, if we did move forward with this, is that it would have to be amended to make sure that the facility was directly responsible for the individual. So where it's not in this current bill, it needs to be in the current bill. So what we have is we have opposed, we have neutral, and it sounds like Dr. Ganadev, you have support. We need to find a space. Either we're opposed with some addendums to recommendations, or opposed straight out, or neutral, or support. And again, if we support, we still need to have some caveats in it.
Ms. Pines, this is Carrie. And can I also ask that if it is, if we're going to be opposing unless amended, can I also suggest that the board ask for a delayed implementation to allow time for regulations to be developed? Because if we do have to go down this path and if we have to do regulations, it's quite a lengthy process. And so I would request that the legislature factor that in with a delayed implementation date.
So maybe we move to an oppose so that we can do something that Dr. Krause suggested, which is an evaluation of this program in California and the impact that these particular practitioners have had on California.
This bill may also be delayed, but in committee, so we may not have to deal with this year. So
we need to make a decision right now.
So, well, okay.
Ms. Pines,
yes.
I move to an opposed position to this bill.
And I second that, TJ.
Any other discussion?
So can I ask them to say oppose unless amended? I know the amendment.
Dr. Thorpe,
yeah.
Dr. Thorpe would have to agree to that request.
Dr. Thorpe, are you putting forth opposed completely or opposed if amended?
I personally think that at the current, so I am saying opposed, because at the current time, I think it would be reckless of us as a fiduciary for the medical board to be adding additional cost to the board we don't understand at this point. If they come back with an amendment that is satisfactory, I'd certainly be willing to look at it again, but I don't think that the amendment should come from the board. I think that our job is to evaluate what's before us. And from my perspective as a fiduciary for the board, I would recommend that we oppose this currently. And then we can, if you want to work behind the scenes to do something different, fine. But I would say at this point, I would oppose it.
Okay.
And so that's my motion for the vote today.
We have opposed and we have a second. Do you have any additional comments before I go to the public?
No, I'm just wondering who writes the amendment if it's opposed with amendment. Who does the amendment?
It's a straight oppose.
Straight oppose.
To amend. is opposed.
Okay, we'll leave it opposed and then we come back later on and see what the author says.
Okay. And now ask the host for any public comments.
Okay, I've opened up the Q&A window. If anyone would like to make a public comment on this bill, please indicate so in the Q&A box. I have Hannah Ree. Let me unmute your microphone. Hannah Ree, are you there?
Yes, thank you.
Go ahead.
Yes, hello, Hannah Ree here with Black Patients Matter. As I'm listening to the speakers here and, having listened and been around for a couple of years with the medical board here, I'm a little concerned about, and I'm not going to name names, of course, but I'm very concerned about a board member who's appearing somewhat confused and dysarthric. And I'm very concerned. I'm wondering if perhaps it's a waxing and waning state or if it's a steady decline. And so in which case, if there is an impairment with a medical board member, I'm wondering if maybe now is not the right time for folks to vote, perhaps. But hopefully it's just a waxing and waning state. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. I don't have any additional requests at this time, so I'll go ahead and close the Q&A window, and Ms. Pines, you may continue. Ms. Pines, I believe you're on mute. If you
Sorry. Ms. Cruz Jones, can we please call the roll?
Dr. Gonadev,
Yeah.
Dr. Hawkins,
Yes.
Dr. Kraus,
Yes.
Ms. Lawson,
Yes.
Ms. Lubiano,
Yes.
Dr. Lewis,
Aye.
Dr. Mahmood,
Yes.
Dr. Thorpe,
Yes.
Mr. Warmoth,
Aye.
Mr. Watkins,
Yes.
Dr. Yip, and Ms. Pines.
Yes. Great. Members, please mute your speakers again. Ms. Lally?
All right, moving on to AB 2478. This bill will require the board to conduct a study by January 1st, 2022 regarding expanding the pool of international medical graduates and submit a report with recommendations on or before January 1st, 2022 to the legislature. The goals of the study include recruiting bilingual physicians trained in Spanish-speaking countries and facilitating their practice in medically underserved areas with high Latino populations, including Los Angeles, Orange County, the Central Valley, and the Inland Empire. Secondly, the study will focus on supporting international medical graduates training programs that enhance primary care residency match competitiveness. Third, identifying and supporting programs that help prepare international medical graduates to match in a competitive residency program in a primary care specialty, including family medicine, international medicine, and pediatrics. Fourth, expanding the terms of service to priority areas to 5-year terms for physician and surgeons to retain international medical graduates in underserved areas for extended times. And finally, the study will focus on adding a service contract requirement for those who enter the United States via J-1 and H-1B visas. Board staff have concerns with this bill as the board does not have expertise in the area requested for the study and therefore will need to contract with an outside entity to perform this study. This bill would have significant cost to the board ranging from approximately $200,000 to $500,000. Due to the board's current fund condition and the significant economic impacts from COVID-19 anticipated to the state's budget, board staff recommends that the board take an opposed position on this bill at this time, as we simply cannot afford a study. May I have a motion?
Move oppose.
Second.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments from the members?
It sounded like Dr. Kraus made the motion. Who did the second?
Who did the second?
Watkins?
Thank you.
Are there any comments or questions from members? I will ask.
Dr. Hawkins, just have just concerns as we think about the shortage of residency spaces we already have in California. Will a corollary be to actually increase the number of residency slots if, in fact, someone believes that the study suggests this is something that should be enacted? We have folks that are just not matching now. It's only comment.
Any other comments or questions? I will ask the host to call for public comments.
I have gone ahead and opened the Q&A window. If anyone would like to make a public comment, please indicate in that box at this time. I have Hannah Ree. Give me a moment to unmute your microphone. Hannah Ree, are you there?
Yes, thank you. I would also encourage you to not support this at this time. It's quite expensive, and certainly with all the lawsuits that's being generated, a lot of money is going out to that. And also, I'd be concerned about international medical graduates coming here and working in underserved areas. And it'd be important not only, well, it would be important, of course, to care for patients in these areas, but also to be sure that they are, bilingual, because when it comes to our patients, African American patients, we hope that they will not be marginalized by IMGs who come to clinic, who work in clinics that predominantly only speak one language. I'd be somewhat worrisome about that. And again, I would agree with you that it is quite costly to study such a thing at this time. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. At this time, I see no additional requests for speakers, so I'm going to go ahead and close out the Q&A window and turn it back to Ms. Pines.
Okay, Ms. Jones, can we have a roll call?
Dr. Gonadev?
Yes.
Dr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Dr. Kraus?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, sorry about that.
Ms. Lubiano?
Yes.
Dr. Lewis?
Aye.
Dr. Mahmood?
Yes.
Dr. Thorpe?
Yes.
Mr. Warmoth?
Aye.
Mr. Watkins?
Yes.
Dr. Yip?
Aye.
And Ms. Pines?
Yes. Okay, Ms. Lally, the final one.
All right. Finally, this afternoon, we have SB 1237 Dodd, which is titled the Justice and Equity in Maternity Care Act. SB 1237 would delete the condition that a certified nurse midwife practice under the supervision of a physician and surgeon. The bill would authorize a certified nurse midwife to attend cases of normal pregnancy and childbirth and to provide prenatal, intrapartum, and postpartum care, including gynecological and family planning services, interconception care, and immediate care of the newborn consistent with standards adopted by a specified professional organization or its successor, as approved by the board. The bill would also define the practice of nurse midwifery to include consultation, co-management, or referral, as those terms are defined by the bill, as indicated by the health status of the patient and the resources and the medical personnel available in the setting of care, subject to specified conditions, including that a patient is required to be transferred from the primary management responsibility of the nurse midwife to that of a physician and surgeon for the management of a problem or aspect of the patient's care that is outside the scope of the certified nurse midwife's education, training, and experience. The bill would also authorize a certified nurse midwife to attend pregnancy and childbirth in an out-of-hospital setting if specified conditions are met, including that the gestational age of the fetus is within a specified range of 37 to 42 weeks of pregnancy at the onset of labor. The bill would require a certified nurse midwife to maintain clinical practice guidelines that delineate the parameters for consultation, co-management, referral, and transfer of a patient's care, and to document all consultations, referrals, and transfers in the patient's record. The bill would also require a certified nurse midwife to refer all emergencies to a physician and surgeon immediately, and would authorize a certified nurse midwife to provide emergency care until the assistance of a physician and surgeon is obtained. SB 1237 also creates the Nurse Midwifery Advisory Committee. The bill would delete the provision including obstetricians on the committee and would require a majority of the members of the committee to be nurse midwives. SB 1237 would delete the provision including ratios of nurse midwives to supervising physicians and associated matters in the standards developed by the committee, and would instead include standards related to all matters related to the practice of midwifery. SB 1237 deletes the condition that the furnishing or ordering of drugs or devices occur under a physician and surgeon supervision, and would authorize a certified nurse midwife to furnish drugs or devices when care is rendered in an out-of-hospital setting. The bill would authorize a certified nurse midwife to procure supplies and devices, obtain and administer diagnostic tests, order laboratory and diagnostic testing, and receive reports that are necessary to their practice as a certified nurse midwife. Finally, the bill would make it a misdemeanor for a certified nurse midwife to refer a person for specified laboratory and diagnostic testing, home infusion therapy, and imaging goods or services if the certified nurse midwife or other immediate family member has a financial interest with the person receiving a referral. According to the author, removing unnecessary supervision requirements for certified nurse midwives in California will allow the nurse midwifery profession to expand and grow, as well as integrate more fully into a team-based model of care with physicians, improve outcomes, and expand access in the most marginalized communities of California. Per the author, nurse midwifery is a well-established profession in California with approximately 1,000 nurse midwives already attending 50,000 births in California annually. Over 95% of the births attended by nurse midwives occur in the hospital. Other sites of care include the home, birth centers, and outpatient care in the clinic setting. However, California is one of only 4 states in the nation that still requires physician supervision in order for nurse midwives to practice. Among other restrictions, this bill prohibits certified nurse midwives from attending a pregnancy and birth in and out of hospital settings if there is a pre-existing maternal disease or a condition creating risks higher than that of a low-risk pregnancy or birth, based on current evidence and accepted practices. However, this bill does not specifically address the issue of allowing certified nurse midwives to perform out-of-hospital vaginal births after cesarean section, also known as VBACs, without a physician consultant and approval, and may create similar tensions and confusion that exist in licensed midwifery practice. The board received 2 opposed unless amended letters regarding SB 1237 from the Californians for the Advancement of Midwifery, CAM, and the California Association of Licensed Midwives, CALM. Both of these letters were distributed to the board members prior to this meeting for review. The board should consider these issues in its discussion on this bill.
Do we have any comments, questions?
This is Dr. Thorpe. So I just have a question. So it sounds like, well, there's a couple of things. Obviously, they want to be released from supervision, which is interesting because I think it sort of, the idea that it's a team-based care and yet you don't have anybody who's actually captain of the team seems a little strange to me. But nonetheless, the other issue, I guess, is the question of whether they can do home births. I don't quite understand the point of the bill, I guess, is what my question is, other than wanting to be released from supervision.
This is Carrie, and I think home births is probably a pretty big issue, prompting them to seek removal of supervision because it sets up a dynamic where they can't get physician support for them to do home birth, in part because of liability issues and insurance coverage issues. And so the licensed midwives that this board regulates were faced with that same issue. And so that is a big part of it, is they want to be able to do home births, and the physician supervision is a barrier to that.
Are there any other comments or questions?
Kerry, Dr. Ganadev. So what can the certified midwives can do what the nurse midwives can, the ones who are under us? So can you explain the difference between the two?
I think certified nurse midwives practice a lot in hospitals, and licensed midwives do not. So licensed midwives practice doing home births and in birth centers.
So is this bill saying that the certified nurses couldn't deliver a baby at the patient's home?
Yes, they would be able to do that.
They would. Okay. So I looked at the letters, and both of the letters, their concern is about not being able to deliver at the patient's home, deliver a baby at the patient's home. What are they specifically talking about if you're saying, yeah, they can?
I think they're concerned that if the patient does not want to go to a hospital despite the risks, they want the patient to be able to make that decision and deliver at home with a certified nurse midwife despite the risks. So they're concerned about patient autonomy.
Okay, but this is Dr. Lewis, but they still have the same problem, both midwives, is that the OBs are not willing to partner with them. Is that still true? For the liability issue?
This is Dick Thorpe again. I think the issue is certified nurse midwives are actually nurses. They're trained nurses.
Yes.
They've gone through an OB, their midwife specialty, and so they're very similar to, it's similar in a way to nurse practitioners in that they have always in the past worked in a team with an OB physician or an OB group. And so what this is So there is actually, evidently, there's enough demand for home births that certified nurse midwives now want to step into, it sounds like what licensed midwives have been doing. Licensed midwives are trained and, trained well, but they're not nurses. And they don't typically work in a hospital setting where they're helping an obstetrician manage his load there, is my understanding. So it sounds like there's a couple of issues. One of them is actually an income issue and a patient autonomy issue. Certified nurse midwives want to have the flexibility to be able to deliver a case at home. Currently, evidently, they're having trouble partnering with OB doctors because of the increased risk outside of the hospital protection and the procedures in the hospital of doing it at home and being unsupervised at home. And then the other issue is, of course, revenue. They're seeing some of this revenue go away, and they would like to capture some of that, I suppose.
This is Lori, if I can comment.
Yes.
I agree with Dr. Thorpe's points that he just mentioned. And I was looking, one part that concerns me is the list of conditions that have to apply in order for the CNM to do the birth in an out-of-hospital setting. For me, it's a little vague, the first bullet as to a pre-existing maternal disease or condition creating risk higher than a low-risk pregnancy. I'm not sure what that means, if that's open to some interpretation or if it's there's more details in the bill. But that's one issue that I noticed. And also, if we're thinking back of our discussion back in November, although that was with licensed midwives, I think the consequence of our vote could be the same in that, certain population of women could potentially lose that autonomy. So those are a couple of things that are on my mind with respect to this. Thank you.
Are there any other members that want to make a comment or support a motion? Okay. You want to oppose this bill with some amendments to it?
So this is Dr. Dick Thorpe again. I make a motion to oppose this bill.
Okay.
Seconded.
Okay. Do you have any further discussion from members? Okay, I'm going to ask the host to call for public comments.
Thank you, Ms. Pines. I've opened the Q&A window so that anyone who wishes to make a public comment can indicate so. Okay, a few comments in here first. Paris Maloufbury. Paris Maloufbury, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead with your public comment.
Hi, thank you for hearing me. My name is Paris. I am a certified nurse midwife. I live in Sacramento and I work at Sutter Davis Hospital in a collaborative practice. And I am really privileged to work here, where I moved here almost 2 years ago from Southern California because nurse midwives there weren't allowed to practice in hospital or out of hospital. There were 7 hospitals in the county that offered maternity care services. One of them would grant privileges to nurse midwives. And that hospital had only one certified nurse midwife left practicing in a very stringent physician-run practice. And it's not that we are just wanting to expand our services to out-of-hospital birth. It's that we want to work, and there are clear restraint of trade issues on hand. We have several counties in the state with no obstetric provider at all. We can't go there to care for those women if there's not a doctor there already, a physician who is specifically an obstetrician and a surgeon. And so if they're not there, we can't go there. And even in areas that have obstetricians, even if there are not enough of them, if they aren't willing to let us come and practice, we can't practice at all. So we are basically having to ask members of a competing profession to grant us permission to compete with them. This is not about us wanting to do more high-risk things. This is not about wanting to expand our scope. This is not wanting about needing to move birth or even more of the births out of the hospital. This is about wanting to be allowed to practice.
Okay, thank you for your public comment. Next request I have is from Holly Smith. Give me a moment to unmute your microphone. Holly Smith, are you there?
Yes, hi there. My name is Holly Smith, and I'm the Health Policy Chair for the California Nurse Midwives Association. I have worked on all of our prior bills in 2016, 17, and 18, and now on this one, and I would be really happy to be used as a resource or to answer any questions that you all might have about technical questions with the bill language. I urge the Medical Board of California to support this extremely reasonable bill. The other group that also supports our bill is the American College of Obstetricians, or not our bill, but supports the removal of supervision, is the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, and you can easily find their position statement online about that. I know others today will speak to why this bill is needed, including that California has a critical access problem and a shortage of OB providers. For example, there are 9 counties that do not have an OB provider at all. And there's a maternal and infant death rates for Black families continue to be high in the state despite the medical community's endeavors to solve this. And we know that midwifery care is something that can help with this. So I want to say today that truly, I think there are some misconceptions about the bill. What I heard you all having questions about says to me that you haven't read it and you don't truly understand how nurse midwifery works rather than licensed midwifery. We practice in the hospital setting mostly. This is not about wanting to only do more home births. We want to protect in-hospital and out-of-hospital access to nurse midwives. We cannot scale up the practice of nurse midwifery if we need permission by physicians to practice. This bill is thoughtful and reasonable. It reflects best practices in statutory language because 46 other states have done this before and we have learned from this. The language in this bill expands access while allowing for specific oversight by the medical community, and it builds in and frankly mandates physician and nurse midwife collaboration and safe care, the kind of care that has been shown time and again to produce improved outcomes. So this bill really represents the vision for California to have a fully integrated, seamless maternity care model where a diverse, collaborative care team can provide for the diverse needs of the patient wherever they need it and wherever they are. This is not just our opinion, but the opinion of multiple national and international health organizations that are calling for and begging for the scale up of nurse midwifery services in California and the US as a whole, because wherever collaborative team-based care is introduced within the midwifery and physician co-model is scaled up, infant and maternal well-being is improved. And this bill is a starting point for that. There is a Legislative Analyst Office report that just came out March 11th. Please read that. The LA report supports removal of supervision, and it says supervision does not improve safety or quality of care.
Thank you for your public comment. The next speaker is Perry Lambert. Give me a moment to unmute your phone. Perry, are you there? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
You are. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Go ahead.
And want to just take a minute without the stopwatch, please, to have everybody just take a deep breath. I think we're all on our computers a lot, and it's good to just refocus. I want to thank you for letting me talk today and to echo what Holly Smith just explained. The California Nurse Midwives Association is a great resource for you should you have further questions and to answer any questions you have about the practice of nurse midwifery, which is regulated by the Board of Registered Nurses in California. I am a Napa County resident for 27 years, a nurse midwife for 34 years, attended over 1,000 births, provided prenatal care for greater than 5,000 women. I provide contraceptive care services, trained as a PHN, public health nurse, and women's health nurse practitioner. My education is at a master's degree in nursing from UCSF. My employment has included a small joint midwifery, physician, hospital, community practice in Ukiah, California, San Francisco General Hospital, where I've just retired after years of practice there. Also mentoring other nurse midwifery students. I have multiple personal examples of how the midwifery model of care has benefited underserved communities, as well as families seeking a safe, physiologic, and untraditional birth experience. On the topic of access to care, I want to bring to your attention Napa County, where there's no longer a hospital that provides midwifery care. We are licensed and allowed to practice in the home, in the birth center, and in the hospital. And as you've just heard, greater than 97% of nurse midwives do practice in a hospital setting. Kaiser is an option in Vallejo, which is in a different county. It's in Solano County. It's a 30 to 50-minute drive away from Napa. So the long established history of midwifery care dating back to the 1980s at Queen of the Valley Hospital in Napa, under 2 collaborative practice midwifery and physician practices, showed that C-section rates were 8 to 12%, lower than the national average. Currently, that rate is greater than 30%. The preterm birth rate during that time was lower than the average preterm labor birth rate for the state of California. In the 1990s, midwifery deliveries at Queen of the Valley were curtailed due to physicians' unwillingness to provide supervision and backup for midwife-attended hospital births in Napa, and it's no longer
15 seconds. Please conclude.
in this case, the burden of physician supervision, as it is, acts as a barrier to practice. Our legal, licensed, and educated right for midwives, particularly in Napa, to practice their profession. It also eliminates access to midwifery care for residents of Napa County unless they travel out of county. It's a proven, safe, cost-effective, and quality.
Thank you for your public comment. 3 minutes had lapsed. The next commenter is Catherine Brown. Catherine, give me a moment to unmute your microphone. Catherine Brown, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Please go ahead with your public comment.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Catherine Brown, and I am providing support for SB 1237. I'm a board certified OBGYN working at the University of California, San Francisco, and at Zuckerberg San Francisco General Hospital. And I'm also licensed by the Medical Board of California. I completed my residency training in obstetrics and gynecology at the University of California, San Francisco, and I'm proud to say that I was trained by clinical nurse midwives. Midwives taught me about pregnancy, about providing dignified and respectful care, labor, birth, and connecting with patients in a really vulnerable time in their lives. Midwifery training has really been a critical part of who I am as a physician today, and I continue to be taught by the wisdom of midwives. When I myself became pregnant, I also was really lucky to have nurse midwives take care of me during my pregnancy, labor, delivery, and postpartum care. So to me, having been trained by midwives, it seems particularly ridiculous that midwifery care in California requires physician supervision, which without physician supervision, it's really within their scope of practice and their license. Every day I practice alongside with midwives and I provide care in the outpatient setting and on labor and delivery with them, and we work together. I oftentimes will consult them and they will do the same with me, and I love working alongside them. As you all know, the US has one of the highest maternal mortality rates of any developed country. The maternal mortality rate is especially high for Black people who have 4 times the rate of dying in pregnancy compared to white people. I'm proud to live in California because we have taken huge strides and often have been the national leader, really fighting towards equity in maternal health care and birth equity. But really on this issue of nurse midwife practice, I think we're really far behind by requiring that they have physician supervision. We are one of only 4 states that requires the nurse midwives to have physician supervision, and allowing midwives to practice in their well-trained scope of practice will allow for better access to reproductive health care, safe birth, dignified care, and will allow for patients to have better access to choose the type of birth and environment in which they want to give birth. So passing SB 1237 will help us to continue to work towards birth equity and making birth safer in California and in the United States. I stand in support of our nurse midwives along with the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology. And so I ask that you, the Medical Board of California, stand with us and our nurse midwifery colleagues in support of this bill.
Thank you for your public comment. Next up, we have Nicholas Rubashkin. Give me a second to unmute your mic. Nicholas Rubashkin, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, and thank you. You got my name pronounced correctly. I really appreciate that. My name's Nick Rubashkin. I'm a professor of obstetrics and gynecology, also at UCSF, like Dr. Brown. I also trained at UCSF, where I was trained by nurse midwives. And after training at UCSF, I worked in a community hospital in San Francisco, where I was the chair of the Perinatal Quality Committee in a practice that was a collaborative practice between hospital-based nurse midwives and obstetricians. And in 5 years in that role, I gained a lot of insight into quality and safety in hospitals with collaborative practices. And I think that the quality and safety issues that might come up around removing supervision for CNMs are entirely solvable issues. And we see that because California is only one of 4 states remaining with a supervision requirement, that other states have solved this issue. I'm also currently completing a PhD in global health and have international research that relates to this issue, and am familiar with midwifery regulations in different countries, but also particularly admire, for instance, the UK and the Netherlands. There are many examples internationally that we could use to bring California's regulations into alignment with other high quality systems. I'd like, I repeat what some of the other comments have been related to access, outcomes, and equity, but in particular, my dissertation research concerns reduction of C-sections. I'd like to point out that in states where midwives are better integrated, C-section rates are lower. And even in California, the state that leads the nation in maternal mortality reduction, 40% of avoidable mortality currently experienced by Black women in California is due to excessive use of C-sections. So for these reasons, I encourage the medical board to support SB 1237. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. Next up, we have Kavita Noble. Let me unmute your microphone. Kavita Noble, are you there? Am I pronouncing that right?
Yes, that's correct. Are you able to hear me?
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So I'm a certified nurse midwife for the past 22 years, and I've worked extensively in hospital, home, and currently in a freestanding birth center. And I do want to clarify some of the questions around this bill, mainly addressing out of hospital or home birth. And I think really the idea is that we're wanting to, as I'm kind of echoing what a lot of people have said, but while we're well trained in home birth, the majority of us do work in the hospital, and we really want to improve access and options for birthing families and make that a very safe option, especially currently in this current pandemic. It's really become clear that California families are seeking safe care with nurse midwives specifically, and nurse midwives happen to be sought after and well trained, but have our hands tied much more stringently than our licensed midwife colleagues do, which doesn't stand up to any other state in the country. So I just wanted to Part of it is wanting to have well-trained nurse midwives also doing care in all of our settings. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. Next up, we have Elizabeth Donnelly. Elizabeth Donnelly, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Hi. My name
Please go ahead.
is Elizabeth Donnelly, and I am a certified nurse midwife. I practice in a collaborative practice in a hospital setting. And as many of my colleagues have shared, I will reiterate that as nurse midwives, we're trained in collaboration and consultation with our physician colleagues. We're trained to identify, co-manage, and refer clients who need physician care, which is considered integrated model of care. And that is our aim, is to increase access to midwives to be able to provide this integrated model of care. As folks have mentioned on the call already, 97% of nurse midwives in California practice in the hospital setting. And it is specifically this hospital setting that we are intending to increase access for California. Currently, physician supervision requirements concentrate nurse midwives in geographic areas where physicians are physically practice, which reduces access and worsens maternity care deserts and health provider shortage areas. California has 9 counties with no OBGYN at all, and 19 counties with 5 or fewer OBGYNs. This maternity care crisis is projected to worsen significantly in the coming years. We have approximately 1,100 CNMs currently in the state, but only 700 of us in practice. And this is because it is hard for us to practice and hard for us to due to physician supervision. We have data that shows that states where midwives have independent practice have higher proportions of rural hospitals with CNM attended births. So removing physician supervision is critical to address the maternity care shortage that we have in our country, in our state. We also know that reducing restriction to midwives improves outcomes generally in a state. Women in states with independent nurse midwifery practice have lower odds of C-section delivery, lower rates of preterm birth, and lower rates of low birth weight infants. We also know that in states with more restrictive practice environments, you have worse outcomes on maternal and health indicators such as cesarean, preterm birth, and neonatal mortality. I recommend going to the birthplace lab to look at that data. And then, as others have mentioned, equity is a primary driver for this bill. We know Black Women Birthing Justice released a report battling over birth, Black women and the maternal health care crisis in California that found that Black women identify increased access to midwifery care as one of the key interventions to solving Black maternal and infant mortality and morbidity in California. You can also look to the Strong Start data that found nationally that when a midwifery model of care was provided to Medi-Cal or Medicaid and CHIP recipient population, that there was lower rates of preterm birth, lower rates of low birth weight, lower rates of C-section, higher rates of VBAC, and fewer infant emergency departments. So really the request is to bring us in line with the majority of states in the nation that do not have physician supervision and improve the care of our communities. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. Next up, we have Hannah Rhee. Please give me a moment to unmute your microphone. Hannah Rhee, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm just thinking about, with all this talk, we at Black Patients Matter advocate for African American health, and hearing the other comments about Black women's health, and then being at these meetings for so many times, for the past how many years. I don't think that being a Black patient advocate has any type of effect on the board members. Making comments about how beneficial it's going to be will not affect their vote against it. So it's pretty hopeless advocating for Black health. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. I see the next comment from a Beth Johnson and a Bethleen Johnson. I'm going to go ahead and assume that's the same individual and unmute Bethleen Johnson. Are you there? Okay, let me try. Beth Johnson is disconnected. Bethleen Johnson, are you there? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and skip Bethleen Johnson for now. If you would like to make a public comment, please go ahead and send me another message. I'll skip to the next request. Faith Gibson, give me just a moment to unmute your microphone. Faith Gibson, are you there? Okay, please go ahead with your public comment.
Well, basically everything that has been said has been wonderful, and I can't add much more to it other than as a California licensed midwife, I support this bill. I think more midwives in the hospital is a really good thing for public health. And I've always dreamed of being able to transfer someone in from a home birth or for some reason something wasn't going the way it should, to be able to into nurse midwives in the hospital. That it certainly provides a kind of continuity of care between for the family and between our two professions that I believe is to everyone's benefit. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. I see that Bethleen Johnson is having trouble speaking. Let me try you one more time. Bethleen, I have your line unmuted. Are you there? Sounds like you might be having some troubles with your microphone. You could use the call-in feature. We could take your comment really quickly.
Is that the last comment?
That is the last comment. I'm receiving messages that she's trying to speak. Bethleen, there's a audio connection option where you could call in from a phone line since the microphone on your device doesn't seem to be working. Yeah, Beth, go ahead and type in your comment. I can read it for you. For those asking about the call-in number, there's instructions in the How to Connect guide at the end of the agenda. Okay, Bethleen Johnson would just like to comment that she is a board-certified OBGYN in favor of SB 1237. I don't see any more public comment requests at this time. A few more seconds. Okay, I believe that's Bethleen Johnson also commented, I have worked with CNMS in close collaboration for 18 years and has greatly improved. So, thank you for your public comment. We will go ahead and close out the Q&A window at this time, and I'll turn it back to Ms. Pines.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to go back to the members just really quickly. I know we have a motion of opposed, but we've heard all the callers ask us to consider this bill, and so I want to come back and see if there's any additional thoughts, changes, comments to the board members.
Ms. Pines, Dr. Ganadev. So I'm just listening that looks like there is no opposition. And I have another thing, that is, we did, after lengthy discussion, we did something with the licensed midwives, so I'm not sure why we would be opposing it. That's what and I see that even the OB-GYN Doctors Association is supporting it, so that's why I just wanted to pass it to the people who made the motion if that's the way they want to go.
So Ms. Pines, this is Dr. Thorpe. I think I made the original motion, and admittedly, after hearing the comments from the open comments, I would be willing to withdraw my motion if the second is willing to withdraw it.
Second.
The second willing to withdraw?
Dr. Lewis?
Yes, I will withdraw the second.
Okay. Can I have a new motion?
Dr. Hawkins would be in favor of support Senate Bill 1237 with additional input that we received from OBGYNs as well as nurse midwives.
Second. Dr. Thorpe.
Okay. So, Dr. Hawkins, are you adding an addendum to some part of the language?
No, I'm not. I had not commented beforehand, but I was impressed with the input we've gotten.
Yes. Thank you. Okay. So, we have a motion to support. We have a second. Ms. Cruz Jones, please call the roll.
Dr. Gonadev.
Yes.
Dr. Hawkins.
Yes.
Dr. Kraus.
Yes.
Ms. Lawson.
Yes.
Ms. Lubiano.
Yes.
Dr. Lewis.
Aye.
Dr. Mahmood.
Yes.
Dr. Thorpe.
Yes.
Mr. Warmoth.
Aye.
Mr. Watkins.
Yes.
Dr. Yip.
Aye.
And Ms. Pines.
Yes. Moving on, thank you, Ms. Lally.
And finally, we will turn to tab 9B in your materials. This provides the status of the rulemaking packages in progress. This is an update only, no action is required by the board. Any questions on the regulations matrix?
So Ms. Lugg, this is Dr. Thorpe again. Is there, what's the timeline for the physician and surgeon health and wellness program to be reviewed by DCA, or do we have a anticipated timeline for that?
This is Carrie, and I am working on a major amendment to the language, and so it's still in early stages.
Okay. Thank you.
Our next item is 10.
I just dispense with 10B on the matrix, so we will move on to agenda item 10, future agenda items.
This is Howard.
Sorry, I totally apologize. Public comment. We're moving on way too fast. Sean just stopped me.
So we're doing public comment on item 10, status of regulatory actions.
Yes, I've activated the Q&A box. If anyone would like to make a comment on regulatory actions, please indicate so now. First request is for Eric Andrews. Give me just a moment to unmute your microphone. Eric Andrews, are you there?
I'm there.
Please go ahead.
Carrie, why so very
response on the timeline for the physician wellness program. You can't be more specific than that. I mean, this has been coming down the pike for a long time, and to just say that there's major changes in the wording doesn't really give us any indication of what's going on with it or anything. Give us a little more information.
Thank you for your public comment. That is the only public comment at this time. Go ahead and close the Q&A box and turn it back over to Ms. Pines.
So now moving to our last agenda item 10, future agenda items. And I think Dr. Krause wants to add something.
Yes.
Yes.
As touched on earlier, I'd like to have a presentation regarding the 20-year history of our special faculty permit process. And in particular, I'd like the presenter to advise us if it's met the expectations we had for it in terms of improving education and research in California medical schools. What has been the benefit of this program to California consumers, and what recommendations do we have going forward with special faculty permits?
Any other board member that wants to see a future agenda item?
This is Lori. I have a request, please.
Okay.
Yes, in this time with the pandemic, I think it might be good to have an update. I know in our last meeting we talked about telehealth, but with more of that coming around these days, I think it might be helpful to maybe understand what other protections that maybe need to be put in place since more of it is happening now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other board member wants to make a request for a future agenda item? And we'll go to our host for public comments.
Okay, I've activated the Q&A box. If anyone would like to make a public comment on future agenda items, please indicate so now. Okay, Eric Andrist. Eric Andrist, I've unmuted your microphone. Are you there?
I'm there.
Please go ahead.
So we advocates have been texting during the meeting and have a concern. Hopefully some of you do as well. Perhaps it's the internet, although I don't think so. But one board member sound like they've been sipping Cosmopolitans all day. I would like an investigation opened into this person's competency. Do I need to file an official medical board complaint for you to ignore, or will this request do? And while he likes to call me out publicly, I won't call out his name out of respect for a possible mental or physical health condition. But if this issue isn't addressed, we will continue to call it out publicly. I have sound bites recorded from the panel meetings this morning. You can't sit there on your thrones and investigate some doctors and not one of your own. Thanks.
Next up, I have Hannah Ree. Let me unmute your microphone. Hannah Ree, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I never know whether or not to use Dr. Ree because I still am a licensed physician, but not in California. So I would have to maybe somewhat agree with the previous speaker. I'm very concerned about one of the board members. It's classic dysarthria, worse so than in previous times. I'm wondering if it's, again, something that's waxing and waning, or if it's something that, it may be time to step down from the board. It's pretty evident to us as well as to other commenters. But as far as future items, agenda items, again, I would really wish the board would allow African American patient advocate group to speak, especially during this time. So that would be wonderful to do. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. I see no further public comment requests at this time. I'll go ahead and close out the Q&A window and turn it back to Ms. Pines. Thank you.
The next agenda item is adjournment. There is no further business of the board at this moment, and I thank you all for participating and adjusting to the virtual meeting environment. I think we did a great job today. Everyone, our attendees. And our next board meeting is scheduled for August 13th, 14th, 2020. And we don't know how that is going to be executed at this point. We hope it's in person, but we'll let you know along the way. Thank you all and have a wonderful evening.